start tonight with a roll call, starting at that end.
Jason Thielen present.
Greg Gordon present.
Troy Stout present.
Lon Locke present.
Jessica Smion present.
Okay. Whoa. There's a delay. Is that the 7-second delay that we have on sports radio?
Jessica's probably watching it.
Because of all the language we use in these meetings. All right. I'm just scrambling to get my packet.
I mean, I can see the prayer of Carl's not here.
Yeah, would you please, Jason? Thank you. A word of prayer by Jason Thielen.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for the opportunity to be here tonight. We're thankful to live in this wonderful country and in this wonderful city and have the blessings and the beauty around us. We're thankful for those who work for our city to keep it safe and keep it running smoothly, and ask for their safety and to watch over them. Please help us tonight that we might have wisdom in our decisions, fully think through the issues and make the best choices we can. We ask for civility and kindness in our community as well as, and we are thankful again and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Jason. Excuse my voice tonight. Allergies have gotten the best of me today. I've invited Jens Hume, who is our scout in the room. Jens, next time you'll have to bring somebody with you, so at least there's a 50-50 chance we'll call on somebody else. Jens is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Please come forward. Yeah, Jens, come right up here to the microphone if you would, please.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jens. We'll begin tonight with a consent calendar. Lon, do you have any corrections or thoughts on the consent calendar?
Yes, I made some grammatical corrections on wanting to check with Shane on a couple of things.
I did have some.
Okay. Bring up some of that on the budget. So I just had, there's a number, just from what we talked about. So,
Okay, and those corrections have been submitted. Okay. Anything else on the consent calendar? Jessica, do you have anything? Okay. Jason,
Greg might have something.
Oh, yeah, let's see. Oh, so ACE is an action item.
Yeah.
However, on the emergency generator, Shane, I wasn't clear if it was the 60 or 70 watt. Is it one or the other or both, or is it clear?
We're still deciding. I would just ask for approval of
Up to
I
70.
see, I put the higher, they're very close to price. If you have to do one's cheaper installation, a little more, vice versa. We're waiting for the gas company to tell us if there's enough capacity to go to that gas generator there. And so, but we need to spend some water impact fee money by the end of June. And so we wanted to get this in motion at this council meeting. So this would provide for Box Elder and Box Elder South, the only way that they can have water is by pumps, which take electricity. So if we had an extended power outage, we'd have an issue getting water up there. And so this has been in the impact fee plan for quite some time. We want to move forward with it. We'd have some additional work to do, probably some kind of a fence around the generator. These are set up so that they cycle like once a week. If once a week's a problem, you can do it every couple of weeks just to keep it running and make sure it's operational. So we would work with the property owner that's right adjacent to the site. You know, if it's a time when they're at church or whatever, that'd be the time that it would start, or whatever would work out best for them. So
And does Lambert Estates, do they also use the generator for their water?
yeah, so we serve Box Elder and Box Elder South or Lambert Park Estates from the same water system.
Being in the county, do they help with the cost at all?
Well, we're responsible to provide water through agreements to them. And so they pay through their user fees, basically.
That was
So,
part of the settlement agreement of 2011, I believe.
Right. Mhm. So we don't collect impact fees there. They build another tank up there. They build an additional tank. We were already undersized, so that helped there too, but yeah. And then the one other one I wanted to explain on this fee schedule, credit card payments, we've had an unwritten rule that we don't take a payment over $1,000. But we had someone come in and want to pay a very significant 6-figure amount on a credit card. We didn't have anything in writing to say no. It didn't end up working out, but I wanted to get this firmed up in writing. They had agreed to pay the fees and things, but it's kind of messy on our end. So that puts that $1,000 max in writing. So.
Mayor, I had one comment on the fire restrictions map. If we're not talking about that later.
Yeah, I think we're gonna move that to, Shane, did we decide to move that to later in the meeting?
Yeah, if you want to discuss it further, we can just bump it down as
Yeah.
an action item.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yep.
All right, let's do that then. Okay, any further questions on the consent calendar? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move item B, the fireworks map, to an agenda item and then approve the consent calendar as proposed.
The motion by Lon Lot, do we have a second to that motion?
I second it.
And
Jason seconds.
Lon, did you make edits to the minutes or those were captured?
Yes. With the edits to the minutes that Shane and I made.
Okay, and Jason Thielen seconds that.
Yes.
So good. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to public comment. Thank you for showing up, everybody, and we encourage you to come up and bring up any topics that you feel need to be addressed that are not on the agenda for tonight. If it is an agenda item, we welcome you to remain seated, and then we'll encourage you to come up and provide public input on that particular item. When you come up, please announce your name and your address, and then you'll be given 3 minutes to make your comments. Austin, are you on the clock? Or is that Shane?
Yeah, yep, I'll have the clock going here,
All right,
so
good deal. Thank you.
let's go ahead and pull up your
Right.
presentation, hold on. Okay.
So I came here to present my Eagle Scout project for Lambert Park. So just to start out, we had a very dry winter this last year, and that increased the fire risk by a lot. So I had an idea for my Eagle Scout project to get out dead wood, take out dead wood in a part of Lambert Park. Yeah. So the plan to complete this project is in the month of June. And yeah, next slide. Okay, so yeah, so we'll take out dead wood to decrease the reduction of fire. Members of our community and fellow scouts will come to help me and remove the dead wood by bringing saws and other equipment to do it with me. So we'll do it throughout the month of June, like 3 times a week until it's done. And I'm guessing I'm requesting a city dump truck to take out all the dead wood that we have like just there. So yeah, so next slide. So that is the area that I will be doing for my Eagle Scout project.
It's a big area.
Yeah, it's not that bad though. Next slide. And at the end of the project, I will report back to the city and I'll estimate that 10 to 15 people will volunteer for this project. And that's it.
Terrific. Thank you, Jens. Jens, we may have some questions for you. Well, first of all, I do have a question. Will you be prepared or ask the city to help you support you with a water truck? Because of the fire risk that you've mentioned, it may be a little bit hazardous to use power saws and that type of equipment unless we have a water truck nearby.
Yeah, we're gonna use hand saws, not power
Okay.
saws. Yeah.
Okay, good. Anybody else have questions?
I've talked with our public works guys about having a couple of bins up there and we could do that. They're just roll off bins that could be dropped at certain locations,
Okay,
like a couple of them.
that's a
So,
good idea.
Okay. Yes, Chief.
I have a question. Would there be a required or requested for motorized vehicles to be?
There's a parking lot, so we'll park up there and just, yeah,
So you mean the parking lot at the Bowery, that area?
yeah,
Yeah. It's probably more central to where you're going to be working.
yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Jens.
Okay.
Thank you for being willing to do that. There's a lot of deadwood up there.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who'd like to make a public comment?
Hello, my name is Dr. Peter Reschke. I'm a newly returned Alpine resident in Stonehenge Lane area. I just learned this week that there'll be pickleball courts being put in very close to the residents' homes, and I'm here to express my concern about that. I have a couple major concerns. The first is the capacity of the parking lots to be able to handle that kind of increased traffic flow. Having visited family in that area for many years, I've seen how busy it can get when there are multiple soccer games at both Healy Park and the one across the street. And I think the addition of 4 pickleball courts without the use of the church parking lot right there, really, I don't think it would support that much traffic and that much parking. I know that the church parking lot is an ongoing issue, perhaps a separate discussion, but I wanted to ask if the city commissioned a study to assess the impact on residents in terms of the parking issues. I know many park in the neighborhoods nearby when the parking lots fill up, and also noise and light pollution. Pickleball courts will be fully lit until 10 p.m. 7 days a week. And I think that with it being just a few feet away from some of the residents' houses, that seems very disruptive. My second concern was the process that this went through. I know that a lot of decisions were made last year and in different meetings. And that it's gone through its course, but I think it's important to note the context of this past year with the pandemic, with many residents overly stressed and not worrying about things like that. And also when going to gas stations and banks where the notice was posted, likely not paying attention to that. So I think it's important to look at the context of this past year and to try to extend a hand of good faith to those who will be directly impacted by that. I want to propose that the city consider seriously a pause on the plans moving forward to take input from the residents there, especially those who will directly back the park. And that an independent study could be conducted to assess the reality of the parking lots hosting multiple soccer games and potential pickleball tournaments going on with spectators. I highly, highly doubt that the church parking lot will be a long-term solution to handle the parking. If the church chained up its parking lot, I think the city would have a parking problem with this. And I think pausing and taking input from the residents will allow a solution that will still allow the city to provide more pickleball courts and but in a more desirable location that doesn't impact the local residents as much. I think a great idea would be to consider Creekside Park, where there's lots of open space, and even one tennis court could be taken from the 4 there and converted to 4 pickleball courts. And that could be perhaps a sacrifice that could be made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Austin, can you make sure that our timer is working over here where it's visible?
there's
Yeah,
actually
it's
one on
48
this-
seconds right now remaining.
And it shows on the podium as well.
I just noticed the timer was dancing around a little bit. It reset a few times.
Yeah.
So I like having it here where it's real visible for the speaker if we can. Thank you, Mr. Ruski, for your comments. Just to point out, one of the facts that is out there that we need to recognize is that the city did build its own parking lot. They're immediately adjacent to the park. So we would not be relying on the park, on the church parking to support the pickleball courts. That doesn't mean we're disputing anything you had to say. I just wanted to bring that up as a fact that we should be aware of. We do, how many spaces are in that parking lot? Is it 27?
No, it's more than that. There's probably 50 or 60.
50
I
or
can
60,
count them, but yeah.
okay. Yeah, so we have located a bathroom there with a parking lot to support the park in the future. Because we do understand that the church could take away the privilege to park there anytime it would like. And in fact, the North Stake Center did that with mountain biking. And that could easily happen with that church there. My neighborhood too, by the way.
Another point is the 1 tennis court and 4 pickleball courts do not have the same dimensions.
How many tennis courts would it take, or how many
Well,
courts
you-
could be placed on?
You could probably get 2 on there, but the length, if you look at Burgess Park, the pickleball courts are longer for the 2 long ways than a tennis court
Okay,
going the same direction. So
okay. I'm not a pickleball athlete, so I don't know the
I'm not
dimensions.
either. I just know I know it's different. So.
Yeah. Is there anybody else who'd like to come? Hi.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Beth West and I'm on Healy Homestead Circle. And I wasn't aware anyone else was coming about this issue, but I'm addressing also the pickle ball court there at Healy Park. And I just found out about it 3 days ago. And I did write a letter to Mayor. I don't know if you saw it, but if not,
Yes,
I'm
I
here
did.
tonight to express my opinion. Like I said, it came to our attention 3 days ago that there are plans to put a pickleball ball court in at Healy Park. Evidently, none of the neighbors, at least a dozen of us around the park haven't been notified, had no idea that this was developing. And our property does bump up against this park, and there's already so much traffic from soccer that we oppose adding lighted pickleball courts here. The Smooth Canyon Park, I'm aware, is 6 acres, so it's a larger area, has more buffer space surrounding the park. A pickleball court could be on the side of the Smooth Canyon Park, possibly in the middle, away from residents' homes. Many of us are disappointed that the city didn't get input from the local residents. Evidently, they got input from other places, but we live there, and we feel like our input might be important. Specifically, our backyard does bump up to Healy Park, and we're on the corner of Healy Boulevard and Healy Homestead Circle. Often we find trash in our yard or right outside our back gate, including water bottles, other trash, discarded balls and clothing. 2 weeks ago, we had a windy soccer Saturday. A day or two later, we noticed a boulder sitting in a bucket behind our house in the park. A landscape boulder was missing from our southwest flower bed. Sure enough, it was from our bed. And isn't that sort of, I don't know, vandalism or trespassing or just disrespectful?
It is, yes.
Well, it was never returned. Go, oh, that's where our boulder went. Well, and we've heard from other neighbors that had property damaged, broken fences, damaged pool covers from kids climbing over their yard, and that creates liability issues for property damage and injury. I believe it affects property values as well. I mean, we've been there 16 years, and when we moved in, there was no soccer, pickleball, of course. We probably would not buy our house today if we had a choice, knowing what the traffic would be from soccer, or it might increase from other things. A better idea, I agree with the Reschke, Dr. Reschke, that maybe a pickleball court could fit at Creekside instead at Healy or Smooth Canyon. There's so much space there and so much more parking. The pickleball court could possibly be, I mean, I'm a tennis player and I like pickleball. I don't have a problem with pickleball. Maybe it could be put at the west end of the tennis courts. And if lighting is an issue, in the summertime, it stays light until 9 o'clock. So why would we need to light them anyway? So that makes so much sense to have all the courts in the same place. And so we hope that you would invite other discussion from residents that live in that area instead of going further with your plans. To me, it's an academic issue, you know, and that would include trash, upkeep, security, liability on private property, property values, all academic. The only thing that makes it an emotional issue is when we feel like the council didn't want our input. That's when it gets emotional. We feel like we've been disregarded and haven't gotten our input. And, you know, we're pretty good natured. You know, we've been fine with the soccer and everything all these years. And this feels like it's just pushing the envelope a little too far and taking advantage of the local neighbors there to kind of cram it in this tight residential space. So that's my input.
Thank you, Beth.
Yes.
Appreciate you making those comments. Shane, can you maybe run through how this was noticed and how it was made, the public was made aware?
Yeah, so when this started being discussed last fall, well, additional pickleball courts have been talked about for a while, but when the process was formalized and followed our city process that's outlined in our development code, we advertised a public hearing, held that public hearing at Planning Commission as per our code, because we were proposing to make changes in open space. So that hearing was held, the Planning Commission voted on the plan, and then the plan came to City Council. We looked at multiple spots. There's a lot of areas that you think would work, but when you consider orientation of courts and things like that, they wouldn't. So they needed to be a north-south orientation. Otherwise, one of the players has sun in their eyes and it doesn't work out. So that was something that was considered. It was on the agenda more than one time, came to City Council for a vote, and the City Council approved the pickleball court. So through the winter, we've been trying to get that bid package put together, and we're actually just kind of finishing that up right now.
Okay, thank you. Austin, can you please pull up an overhead view of the park and the area and maybe help us understand and kind of remind us where the courts are going to be placed and how far off property they would be? While you're doing that, I know I've talked privately with a number of the council members about this, and I think that there's a willingness on the part of the council to discuss and give consideration to the lighting issue. I think there's some agreement there that the lighting is a little bit more obtrusive than we'd like at times. And we've talked in these meetings before about having dark nights. However, that's a decision that the council would have to make and direction given to the city.
And if I could just say something on that, since we built the tennis courts at Burgess Park and the pickleball courts down there, the lighting technology, in fact, right after we built that, or within a year or so, LED technology kind of came out for those courts. We ended up retrofitting the courts down there, I think about the time we rebuilt the basketball court. And even since then, there's been multiple generations of new technology. The very newest technology that we found that is dark sky compliant, there's not a court in Utah that has it yet. There's some other lighting systems that are kind of the previous generation that are there, but it's cutoff lighting. It can meet, the council passed a new ordinance a few months ago for sports court lighting. And it could be designed to meet that, which is very restrictive according to the lighting company compared to other cities. Most of them have a cutoff of a 1/2 foot candle at the property line. Our ordinance says 0.1 foot candles. But they said that it can be designed to meet that. So all the light is directed onto the court.
From what height?
We have a design right now that it has to be tweaked that just barely came in yesterday, I think. They had those at 22 feet. They could be dropped down to 18. Right now, we don't have, with the design that they provided, we don't have 0.1 at the property line. It's a little bit higher, but they said they could remedy that and make it compliant with that ordinance. So.
Okay, and I guess before we hear from someone else, to me, it's something maybe we discuss a little further, whether lighting at all is needed or whether we want to restrict it.
Yeah,
more.
I can tell you right now, the pickleball courts would not be complete this year because all the contractors we've talked to are completely booked. You could probably get concrete, but not surfacing.
Yeah,
So
I think you'd be lucky to get concrete too.
yeah, and they said they could probably do that, but the surfacing takes warmer temperatures, and so they only go into like the end of August or maybe a little bit into September, depending on the fall.
Yeah.
For that. So
Hi, thanks for letting us be here. I'm Pam Reschke and I live at 880 Stonehenge Lane, which backs on the north side of Healy Park. And I think that we want to express that our biggest challenge here is that the surrounding neighbors were not notified in a transparent way. I talked with Austin Roy today on the phone for quite a while, and I really appreciated him listening to me. And he told me the process of how you let people know about meetings and such. And I think that during COVID, things weren't normal and things weren't perfect. And I think we need to realize that the process of letting people know about this wasn't perfect either. The fact that the usage of the park was changing, it was adding pickleball to the park. To me, that's like having a zone change. And anybody within 500 feet should have gotten a notification through the mail or email or something that this was occurring. So I think bottom line, that's one of our challenges, is that I don't think at any of your meetings you had any of the people that back this park that will be affected directly, especially the Abernathy family, who have all four behind their landscaped yard. So the other thing is we were trying to find out exactly happened. I had some conversation with Greg Gordon through texting and whatever, and we had to finally just go to the minutes to find out what was going on. And so we read the minutes, and to our chagrin, we saw that Mr. Sorensen said in the November 24th meeting that he had contacted Mr. Jossie from the North Utah County Soccer Association to find out from him if the placement of the pickleball court was going to be okay for them. And our problem is, why couldn't you have done the same thing for the people that will be affected the most? So we are asking just to have input. The notification of the citizens wasn't perfect, and we need to acknowledge that. And we need to let the people that will be impacted by this, especially the Abernathy family, to be asked, what do you think about this? This whole project is to cater to the soccer. You've got we have seen it, they've got the field on a curve so that there's room for the pickleball courts. Please have compassion for the people that live at this park and take the time to get their input. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
That's not correct on the angled soccer field. They do that so they don't wear the grass out.
Change the angles.
The layout that we have has the soccer field square with the pickleball courts. So,
Okay, all right. I don't disagree that maybe we could have done a better job of notifying the immediate neighborhood. But maybe we did something I'm not aware of.
I mean, our big thing in the city business is we follow our process. If we need to change our process, that's what we need to do. And
We
you know,
followed state statute in the terms of
well, it's
notification.
actually our code and it identifies in there what we do, public hearing,
Yeah,
you know, what the notice requirement is and all those things. If we want to change that, we can.
okay,
But if one issue, if you contact 2 or 3 people and then somebody says, well, you didn't contact me, that's not fair. And so then we get in that tug of war.
yeah,
And so if we change the ordinance to say within 500 feet or whatever it is, that's great. We can do that.
okay, great. Hello,
Hi, my name is Ray West. Beth is my wife who spoke earlier. We live on 926 Healy Homestead Circle. And I wanted to second her comments and just add a couple of my own and represent 2 of my neighbors who can't be here tonight because of the short notice when we just learned about this 3 days ago. First of all, I agree with Pam that the real critical factor here is notifying people. And I know that notices go out and they're posted on the website. But it seems even if the regulations don't change on who to notify in terms of a distance, at least some kind of notice could have been put on people's doors to say this topic will be discussed and not depend on the people themselves to actually go to the website and read what's happening this week. The other thing I'd like to say, because we live on that corner of Healy Homestead Circle and Healy Boulevard, I mean, and our kitchen window goes right out into the park. So every Saturday morning we wake up and we see it. And we see what's happening throughout the day when we're out there doing yard work. And I just want to know, my observation is people are not using the parking area that the city constructed there. They are still in the church, and on any given Saturday, you'll see 3 or 4 cars in the new parking area that the city built. Everybody else clearly wants to be closer to the field. They want to get out of their car and take 5 steps and put down their chair. In addition to that, there's a lot of parking on Healy Boulevard, and I'm really concerned. Maybe it's just a matter of time before somebody chasing a ball goes out there, and as you know, people drive pretty fast on Healy Boulevard, and there's an accident. Or and also on Healy Homestead Circle, we have a nice mature tree, and that spot under that tree for shade is taken every time there's soccer, right? Because nobody wants their car to get hot while they're out on the soccer field. So I think there's a number of reasons why people don't use the parking the city constructed. And so you should know that thank you for building it there and putting in the parking, but it's just not being used. And so what was said previously, that if the church should ever decide that for whatever reason, they're going to block off that parking, it's all going to, a lot of it's going to spill out into the street as what I believe a first choice before they actually go into the city parking area. So that's my opinion. I'm actually the one that found our landscape boulder in Healy Park, and I'm the one that carried it back to our bed, our flower bed. I had to stop and rest along the way because it was so heavy. And so I know it wasn't any youth that did that, it was just too heavy. So somebody was having trouble holding down a canopy, a tent, I don't know what. And so they decided to help themselves to this boulder and put it there to hold something down during a windy day. And you know, the thing that's most disappointing is they didn't bring it back. I mean, and I don't know if that was an Alpine resident watching soccer or a non-resident watching soccer. They didn't bring it back. So I think my time's gone, isn't it?
it is.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for your comments.
Let me just make one. So I've got notes here from Brandon Allred and Bryce Bergen, also on Healy Homestead Circle. I won't read them, but they both support us. And they both bring up safety and security issues, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ray, the reason they didn't bring it back, it was heavy.
And to your other point, I actually had to stop my car and wait for 3 different soccer balls you kicked in front of my car on Healy Boulevard yesterday. And just amazed that it was almost like there wasn't a street there. They were kicking the ball right at the street. Thank you for your comments. Austin, so let's go back to this aerial view. I'm interested in the one that shows the church, the park, and the neighbors who back up. I'm a little bit confused because I thought that there was, between the path and the homes, is there not a strip of open space that was designated there to create a more of a buffer between their space and the private open space and ours,
Well,
the cities?
Stonehenge has open space there, but they've allowed some of their residents to kind of lease it or claim it. I'm not sure what the arrangement is there.
Okay.
So there's actually like a 50-foot strip of open space there. So it's not like that property owner's home is right against Healy Park.
Right, it's
With
50.
what they've done,
feet in.
it feels that way and looks that way, but it's in the city's eyes and the density that they received in that subdivision and the lot sizes. It's open space and it's recorded that way on the plat.
So then, with that considered, then how far would the edge of the courts be from the actual property line of those residents?
Probably roughly 80 feet,
80 feet.
mhm,
Okay,
the way it's drawn on this map.
okay.
Yeah.
Can you
wanted
tell
that
me, in
clarification.
Burgess Park, we have our pickleball courts, how far are those from property lines, you know?
They would be closer than that to those homes.
Austin, did you look at
I
that
can measure
measurement?
it here.
Yeah, I looked at that the other day when I discussed this with Greg Gordon on the phone. It's about 50 feet to one of those. from-
In Burgess,
But that was measured, I'm sorry, that was measured from the court to the home. So to the property line, it's probably closer than that.
in Healy would be how much?
Healy,
Is it 120, I
so this is, if you look at that blue line on your screen there, that's about the edge of where the pickleball court would be. That's showing 86 feet, give or take.
Oh, to the property.
To the property line, to the home, it's probably another 30 feet, if they followed their setback, which should be 30 feet. So that would be, almost 120 feet to the home.
Okay, so there's a little bit of an optical illusion there when you look at the way the neighborhood is laid out today, that the courts aren't really as close to actual property lines as they would seem.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Hello.
Hi, I'm Phil Reschke, 880 Stonehenge Lane. The courts are close to the backyard. I mean, that's really what it is. People, are trying to use their backyard. And, you're just right there. I don't think any of you would like to have that kind of noise and congestion that close to your backyard. There are alternatives that would work at Smooth Canyon. At Creekside. I mean, it's set up, they're far enough, they're much further away from houses at Creekside than they would be here. It would just fit better. It just feels like you're trying to squeeze just too much into a small space just to take advantage of the parking lot that was built. Well, the parking lot is going to be great for soccer if we can get people to use it. Right now, they're parking on High Bench in a red zone. I mean, nobody's enforcing the red zone on the curb.
And maybe Chief can speak to that point. We have called on enforcement and it has happened, but you're right. People continue to ignore the curb.
Yeah, and it's just dangerous, even just turning that corner. It's a single lane road very often.
Yeah.
And kids trying to cross and it's just a mess. But bottom line is you're just too close to a usable space in somebody's backyard. The Sunday play that would certainly not be prohibited would disrupt church services in the church right next door. I don't think you need to antagonize church to have the parking taken away with that. So I think there's just a lot of reasons just to reconsider and just look at it and see what's going to be best for everybody. And I think just the lawsuits that have happened throughout the country are when pickleball courts are closer than 500 feet from a residence. You know, I don't think anybody's talking about a lawsuit, but I'm just saying there's precedent for people being disturbed by, it's not so much how loud it is, it's the frequency and it's the noise and then the crowd that comes with it. And trying to do it, the lighting is an issue, but it's mostly because it's going to be prolonging how long we have to put up with the noise of the people they're playing. They don't need to be playing until 10 o'clock at night when they're that close to backyards. And we just ask that you table it for now. I think construction costs might even come down if you put it off and look at a better place for it.
Thank you very much, Phil. Okay, we'd like to limit it to one more comment. If there's anybody who'd like to get up, we need to move on with the rest of our agenda, but we'd welcome one other comment if it's needed. Okay, thank you, Ed.
Ed Bush, 1463 Box Elder Drive. I don't have anything on the pickleball court. I was just wondering so I could answer people who always seem to ask me, when is Grove Drive going to be open again?
As soon as it's ready. So.
Okay.
How's that for an answer? They're working on it. Curb went in Monday. There's just certain things. I mean, a lady called and got after me the other day, but it needs to be safe to be open. And I mean, there's a way around that's not that far out of the way.
No, I know.
But
I get asked the question a lot, so.
But we're on the contractor. You know, they're had to wait for the gas company to come and do their thing, and it's just several things have to fall into place to get that done. So
thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Okay, we're going to proceed with our agenda for the evening. We have reports and presentations. Is Mr. Brammer here? He is. Come on up. Thanks for coming tonight, Brady.
Not sure which one to choose. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and report to you. I'm Brady Brammer. I'm your representative in Utah House of Representatives. And you know, I want to thank all of you for the good work that you do. It's been an incredibly challenging year at every level of public service. I also want to thank the good chief. He does a great job up at the legislature, and he's been taking a more active role in the Sheriff's Association, I think, or no, which Chiefs of Police Association. And so I see him up there, and it's always nice to see a friendly face from the home district, and he's doing a great job representing not only some of the interests here, but also of the chiefs of police. And that has been a very difficult, it's been a difficult year for our police officers. And I am truly grateful for the patience and compassion that he's shown throughout this year. And there's been a lot of tough issues for police officers. But he's been wonderful to work with through some of that. You know, speaking of this year, I tell people that there's a saying that that applies to this year in terms of being a public servant. It's that there's no good place to stand in a massacre. Dealing with COVID and with a lot of the other issues that we've been dealing with, it's been a difficult and a very demanding year. But we've ultimately, I think that we had a good year at the legislature. To give you a little background on me, this was my third session. I'm a litigation attorney by trade. And then as far as the committees that I serve on the Judiciary Committee. I serve on the Business and Labor Committee. I am the vice chair of the Infrastructure and General Government Committee. So they do the budgeting for all the roads and the buildings and a lot of the major infrastructure projects through the state. A lot of the bonding and debt service issues go through that committee. And then I am also the chair of the Administrative Rules Committee. So anytime that an executive branch makes a rule, then it comes to our committee to make sure that they were delegated that authority to make that rule. And if a lot of people really hate the rule, we kind of beat them up over it a little bit, and we're kind of the check on the executive branch. So those are my primary roles in the legislature. As far as this last legislative session, about this time last year, we went in for special session and we cut a tremendous amount of our budget. In fact, my infrastructure and general government committee, we cut 18% of our budget, and we cut very, very deeply in that committee, more than any other. And a lot of that is because we had built in funds that, instead of going into debt, we were using year by year one-time funds to build our projects, so that in the event that there was a downturn, we would be able to use those funds that were normally one-time funds as a rainy day fund to fill in the rest of the budget. So we were acting, my committee had been getting our debt ratio down really, really far so that we could absorb what happened with COVID. And we did, and it worked. It was a very effective strategy. We were the only state in the United States that actually increased their funding during COVID for education. We were the only one. And, we've been elected we've been awarded for the 14th year in a row, the best run state by Rich States, Poor States. And so as far as COVID, one of the things that I worked on quite a bit, and a lot of the theory behind it were things that I worked on with a few other representatives, was the drawdown for COVID. So getting us out from the regulations in a responsible way. And what we were worried about was that there was so much regulation going on that it was creating a Gordian knot. So if you're not familiar with the Gordian knot, it's a knot that is so dense and thick that you just can't untie it. And it's from a Greek history, and the tale is that Alexander the Great walks over to the Gordian knot and just takes his sword and slices it down the middle to undo it. And we felt like, as a legislature, we needed to untie the Gordian knot that had been tied up through various COVID regulations. And that's been a process, and it's been a fight to do that. And I'm glad to see that we've been able to responsibly do that as people have been vaccinated. And a lot of the reason why I come before you today is just to answer any questions that you have about the legislative session, about the legislative process, as well as to remind you that if your city or specific residents in your city need something legislatively, that now is a good time to let me know, because it's very difficult for me to get a bill drafted and prepped for the legislative session if I don't have it sometime, during the spring or summer. I'm working on bills now for later. And so, Councilman Member Lott has been an observer of me working on a Utah Lake bill that is taking a lot of time. But with that said, I will say this. I went into my legislative service quite cynical as to how it would work, as to the lobbying interests, and as to the whether there would be snakes in the grass, and there are a few, but I will say that I am less cynical now than I was going in. And there's a lot of really good people serving. There's a lot of really good people serving, not just in elected positions, but a lot of the staff members are bright and they're sharp and they're great people, and they're doing great things for our state. And so with that, if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you see that is a need that I can, kind of take note of, I would appreciate it.
Anything from council?
Just one comment. I appreciate all the effort you're putting into Utah Lake to make that, more usable and a better asset to our community. I think one challenge that we've seen, this last session especially, is a lot of the imposition on cities in terms of regulations and taking away some city rights.
Yeah.
I think a real challenge in Alpine is sort of, when we're this developed, this, 170 years old, when they come in and say, you have to make housing affordable, right? Our hands are very, very tight. We have very little we can do to meet some of these goals that the state sets out. And if we were Salt Lake City or maybe Sandy or a developing city, right, it'd be all different, but we're small. And so.
Yeah, I think, I will say this, we are in the minority as far as not being super in favor of high density homes. Now, to some degree, so every city, the existing residents don't want higher density. That's the way it is. But I will say that the pressures are pretty intense, and they are starting to change their tune in terms of we're losing that battle politically on high density. And there's more and more pressure because there are, as we watch the housing costs skyrocket, and the amount of pressure for people to come and live in Utah and work here, it's getting to be a losing battle. And the accessory dwelling units, that was a Band-Aid on this, where in 1980 we averaged about 4.2 individuals per household. Now we're down to about 3.8 or so, and doing the accessory dwelling units took it back up to about a 4.2, or will take it back up to about a 4.2 based on what we're estimating. And that was a Band-Aid to get us through COVID, because we were having even more people. We had so much in-migration during COVID due to a lower regulatory environment than a lot of other states were seeing. I have multiple people that have moved into my neighborhood that are currently employees of the California state government that are living in Utah and working remotely because they can't handle what's going on in California. I mean, that's insane to me. But there's just a lot of pressure being applied. And I think that the cities and municipalities got beat up a little bit. And some of that is a function of, if you look at the leadership in both the House and the Senate, they're not going to be particularly city friendly. And that's a political reality that we're dealing with. Now, one thing that we were able to do, I was sensitive to the ADU thing, and it had the first few drafts. The thing that I was able to do on that was I approached Representative Ray Ward and I said, look, you've got to build in parking. You have to give the cities at least a little bit on, so that they're not having as much on-street parking. And so we were able to get that in initially. And I thought that was the biggest item that needed to be in there, but it still makes for a few difficult things. But I can tell you, as far as density, and I was on the Planning Commission for Highland prior to serving, the low-hanging fruit has always been ADUs, as well as senior living. And then in terms of the ADUs, what we also ran up against was not only a developer-friendly legislature, but a property rights-friendly legislature that is partisan to property rights. And the ability for people to control what goes on in the home that they live in was a partisan issue that is going to have a little bit of a different political calculus than it would have at the local level. So, yeah.
Thank you for your service, and I think you do a terrific job up there on the Hill. I do have a question, though, that may seem hostile. It's not toward you, but
it's okay.
It's
the legislative world. You take it. You know.
No, to your point earlier about a non-friendly environment towards cities on Capitol Hill. It seems to me that the state's power is expanding and the municipal power is shrinking. And the state seems to be doing making a pretty concerted effort to reduce the options that the city has to govern itself in the way that it sees fit, and more adherent to state statutes and ordinances that tie our hands. And I guess I'd like to know your opinion on how we can get back to where cities actually can be self-determinant.
So I can tell you one somewhat minor issue, but I think it has a bigger impact than what a lot of these cities perceive it as. The cities are trying to have a legislative management committee through the league that is micromanaging how the league is interacting with the legislature. And they're not empowering their lobbyists to make the decisions on the timeline that the lobbyist needs to make the decisions. And they're having them say, well, let me go back and check with my legislative management committee. And they go back for, it takes a day or so. And we've got 6 weeks and it's not, it's moving faster than that. And if I had to say one thing that would probably make as big of a difference as anything, it would be figuring out exactly what the principles and parameters are that you're going to allow Cameron Deal, who does most of the interaction with the legislature, what you're going to allow him to operate in, and then trust him to do it. Because he needs to be able to strike those deals and strike them faster and make positions. And it may not be everything you dreamed of, and you may not get it exactly right, but he's got a tough position. And I'll give you an example of how that hurt the cities. In negotiating the ADU issue, there was one point where a member of House leadership was so frustrated with the slow rate of getting back and negotiating at things that as the bill was being voted on, he actually was yelling across this was in Business and Labor, and I'm on that committee. He was yelling across the room to the back of the room saying, and the league is not getting back to us. You've got to empower him to make some decisions that are meaningful. And that will help a lot because his hands are tied. And we need to be able to interact really quickly with those interests. Or specific cities need to send their own people up that are empowered more specifically, if it's not within the league parameters. So that's one way to do it. The other is, I think the cities need to, when they see something percolating, and it's not like density has not been percolating for years and years at the legislature. It's been out there, and they need to get out ahead of it and figure out exactly what they want as far as, and it won't always be uniformity, but there are some adjustments to laws that they can say, hey, there's a bad actor city that's doing something, let's make sure that we police our own on it. Because it's when there's a bad actor that you get something really egregious from the legislature.
Thank you. Austin, I've lost visual of Jessica. I need to be able to see her to see if she has a question or a comment. If we could get her on, please. Long, did you have anything?
I just want to thank Representative Brammer. I've watched him work in many a different meeting. He's a great representative for us. I appreciate him. Things behind the scenes that he watches out for Alpine City for. So appreciate it.
Thanks.
Jessica, did you have anything? Okay. All right.
Please don't hesitate to reach out if there's something. One thing that I did want to flag, I don't know where things are at with, I know Highland is up in arms on the Blue Bison stuff. Alpine has had their battles on Blue Bison. Usually when a large developer runs into roadblocks with cities, they make an end run to the legislature. If you guys see anything that way, please alert me, because sometimes they'll hide it so that it's hard for me to see it. So if you see something or hear about something that way, let me know. That's the next chess game play. So
thanks, Brady.
Thanks.
Appreciate your time. Okay. Let's move on to our action items. For some reason, this won't sit still for me, this agenda. I can't seem to keep the track. Shane, did you want to roll out the ACE proposal?
Yeah.
For the 3-year extension?
So Dawn is here with us. Dawn, do you have anybody else with you from ACE?
Nope, my good buddy momentum.
Okay, we're here. So in our contract with ACE that started in 2013, there were provisions in there for a couple of 3-year extensions. So the last of those extensions is due right now. It's actually written in there to be an automatic extension unless either party gives notice to the other. But we had some rate increases in here that we wanted to address, and then also some additional services that we've discussed some. So in talking with Craig earlier today, what he recommended was if the council approves the extension, that you kind of give us the nod on that, and then he would put something together in writing and we bring it back to our next meeting to officially have that adopted. And I was going under the premise that it was the automatic, and he said it's just good to have the formal, which I can see. So so we've discussed a few things with ACE as far as ways to address some of the things that our residents have requested. Since the city got out of North Point years ago, our residents are charged a non-resident rate. The alternative to that when the city got out was there was a transfer station on Geneva Road, and they were able to go there for a reasonable kind of a resident rate. That transfer station has since closed down. ACE has a facility in Pleasant Grove, but it's not licensed at this point for, and Don can explain this better than I can. So you're welcome to come to the podium, Don. They're working to try to get that so that residential drop off can occur there. They invited us to their facility last week and we were able to see things down there. But some of these things that we've discussed are kind of a spring and fall cleanup. Some different options there where we could have dumpsters at like a set location. They'd be there for a few days. Residents could bring their trash. ACE would have kind of a rotating schedule of drivers to come and pick those bins up as they got full.
And Shane, that's all waste. Green waste is the objective, but it's all waste.
It's
essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want concrete and asphalt and
Yeah.
stuff like that in there. Yeah, that wouldn't work out well. So we'd have to have a little bit of policing there. But I think a couple things, there's some pains that come with that for city staff, but I think it would help give the residents an opportunity and help kind of clean up the community if we provided that as an option. And Don, do you just want to go over these? I emailed this out to the council earlier today. There's 3 options on here. Maybe you can just touch on those a little bit. And I don't think we have to decide these tonight, but we wanted to roll out some options and then we could kind of flesh them out and get down to the details here soon. We're hoping probably to do like a spring cleanup thing with bins in June. That one we would need to make a decision on soon so that we could get it in the news line and get it advertised.
And the increase in tip fees, things like that, that's in your proposed budget.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we've already kind of looked at some of that if we've looked in detail. Jason.
And so I understand what you're saying. So like in the fall and spring, we would put out these bins for people to put their waste, green waste, for example, in it. How many do they typically put out? I only say that because I've seen houses that literally have trailers all day long going out as they do their clean. I mean, one person could fill every single one of those up and wait for you to dump it and do it again. I'm a little concerned, how many do you need and how often do you need to do it?
So you guys are a little bit littler of a city, but West Bountiful has a program that they've been doing this way, and it's been working really great for them. So what we do is I'll just tell you what we've done for West Bountiful. So what we did, we'll put out like 6 roll-offs for just trash. They'll kind of have one out to the side for green waste, and then they'll have one for metals and that. And so what we do is drop them off, and it's nice to have a closed area, but a lot of the cities don't, and everything, like a nice public works yard or something. But what we do is we just We'll send the drivers out. They'll work about from 10 to 3 o'clock. They tell the residents that this is open on this Saturday from like 7 o'clock till 2 o'clock. So at least we can get some runs in with the roll-offs. And you do have staff on site that they would go ahead and tell them, okay, fill up this roll-off. This is the green waste roll-off. This is a metal roll-off. This is just trash. And it really has worked out really, really well at any of these locations. West Jordan, they started charging for their roll-offs. So they wanted to give the residents a way to be able to get rid of their trash instead of renting a roll-off from the city. So what they are doing is, this is gonna be their second one coming up in June. And what they do is Public Works, we did 16, we're gonna do 20 roll-offs, but they're of course bigger city. And pretty much the same thing that I just have drivers work on that Saturday, that rock and roll and go to Transjordan and try to get as much done as and everything in that. But I wanna ask you guys, see if you guys know this. So with West Jordan and South Jordan and West Bountiful, what do you think the most people bought with their stimulus checks for their homes? Shane?
I'm not sure.
Come on. Mayor?
Pool tables,
No. Jason,
lawnmower.
you're close, but
Yes.
no, guess what though? Barbecuers. So for West Bountiful, we put out a 15-yard for the metal. That's worked every single year. They said, Don, could you bring back 2 of your 30 yards on Monday where we can fill up 2 30 yards with metal, and most of it was barbecuers.
Oh, barbecue.
So everybody got new barbecuers.
I was one of those guys.
But anyhow, history about me, I've been actually working for Ace for 20 years talking trash. And I actually have been with the company when we initially put out your guys' carts in your city. And that I was out on the trucks, putting them out and everything and that. Alpine City is really important to us. It's really nice to brag about, you know, servicing your city with all the rest of the cities we do in the Utah and everything that. But I do think the roll-offs would be a great start on that for you, because that's one thing that Shane says, the most thing that you guys hear from your residents is we have no place to take our green waste, we have no place to take our trash. And then on that also, so Shane and a couple other employees of your guys's did come to our open house in Pleasant Grove. Was really happy to see Shane. I was able to introduce Shane to our owner of our company, and it was just really nice. On August, the agenda for Pleasant Grove, we're going to be on there. And what we're asking Pleasant Grove is if we can have the Alpine residents come to our Pleasant Grove yard and drop off trash. And so it'd be so much closer for you guys. I showed Shane where they would have the residents go. So the residents would just go off the scales here, but my big trucks would be always going around them. So the residents really would never be in the way of my big trucks that are going into my transfer station. So we're pretty happy about that, because I've been pushing for this for a while since we've talked about green waste and everything here.
So would that be a permanent, like throughout the summer that we could do that, or is it just a one-shot deal?
We're hoping to do it, like what we'll do is probably do a specified Saturdays, probably do it every other Saturday or something. And that just to make sure that my drivers, and we have extra crew there to make sure that we help the residents if they have to offload their trailers and everything in that. But it can't happen until after August, I'm sorry. So I can't really give you the okay, but we're working for it. The owner of the company really wants to push for it. And Pleasant Grove, they really do like us, knock on wood, so.
So these are dump trailers. So if you have green waste, you have to have a truck, you throw it in the back of your truck, you drive there, and then you grab it by handfuls and throw it into the dumpsters. There's not a dump trailer that you could ever come up and drop it.
Okay,
So
so
there's 2 things being talked about,
Yeah.
Jason. One is the bins that they would bring to the city.
Right.
Residents would be able to go dump into them.
Right.
The other thing they're working on that's on the agenda in Pleasant Grove in August is for, if you have a pickup load of waste that you want to take, like you were taking it down by Geneva at
Right.
North Point, you, if it works out, would be able to take it to Pleasant Grove to their facility.
But it would be a
And dump
dump
that.
trailer where you don't have to hand throw things out of your trailer. You can just dump the trailer back. I
Right.
guess that's what I've got. That's how it would be.
Just like North Point, basically, right, Don?
yeah, you just have to offload it.
Yeah.
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 And this is green waste
That's
only?
great.
And that,
Whatever
Is-
waste you
Anyways,
take
okay.
care.
Yeah.
So hopefully that works out.
But
We're
not
just,
till August if it works out.
And then we did talk about doing a spring, fall and cleanup. It's called box, bagged and bundled. And what the residents could do is leave this out at their curb. We would go around with a rear load truck and we would pick up anything that anybody would put out at the curb. And that, and we'd run through the garbage route like we normally do, if you guys wanted to go that way. And then another way that we was gonna say that we could do this is the residents could call and we will haul. And that's another way that, we've never done this before, but we thought that would be kind of a great opportunity for the residents here. And then this, with this all being new, you know, we can tweak it as we go along also.
So I'm a bit curious about the call and haul concept,
Yeah.
because what I'm imagining is that a standard garbage truck pulls up. How do they load that stuff? Because it's not in a dumpster, right? Or is it a special type of truck? You're gonna be there to
I'm
put those
not,
mattresses in the.
The man,
truck.
so what we have is a 2-man crew or a 3-man crew. It depends on how much we have. And what we'll ask the residents is kind of give us an idea of what they have out and everything in that. And we don't want, you know, the residents to have, you know, like a whole, you know, front of their house full of stuff and everything. But like they want to get rid of a washer, or they want to get rid of, you know, a couch or a bed or a mattress or something like that, or they have trees that they want to get rid of that. And we do have sizes and everything in that, and we will share with you guys. And like, we want them 75 pounds, 4 feet to 5 feet in length and everything, but that doesn't count with the couch. But, you know, we will take away the green waste. And then the green waste, of course, we want it bundled, like the, you know, the smaller sticks, you want it bundled for that at least a man can pick it up and put it in the back of a rear load truck. So these are the old fashioned trucks that back in the day when people picked it up and put it in the cans.
Right
And
on the back of the truck.
We're one of the companies that has only a few of those left. But it's really a popular in a lot of the cities for the both ways programs.
Okay, thank you.
And would that be out on the curb for pickup?
Yes.
Okay. And do you still have the dumpster rental program? I think that's, you know, where a homeowner can rent a dumpster for, what is it, a few days and then have it picked up?
Yes.
And I think I've looked at that before, but I think it's so popular, right? They're mostly taken out, and is it hard to schedule, or do you think you have sufficient supply to?
So if whichever program you guys decide you will do, what we'll do is set aside the dumpsters for your city. Like for West Jordan City, we have 32 roll-offs that have West Jordan City and Ace Disposal Neighborhood Dumpster Program. And the same thing for West Valley City. And that, so we would, but if you was just to do the roll-offs with the spring and the fall cleanup, we decided to do 6 or 8 roll-offs, we will make sure we hold 6 to 8 roll-offs for that spring cleanup or that fall cleanup. And that what I do with all of the cities, I pretty much have to weigh them out and let the cities know, yes, you can have them this month or next month, but June, like I told Shane, June's great. May and April is so busy. So June's a great month to do a spring cleanup.
So if we do June this year, is there any way, can we get in line to get an earlier start next year? Are you saying that you're already full for next year?
We can talk April, but then sometimes April's too soon and then it's really rainy and snowy, and especially you guys are in Alpine.
Yeah,
So I'm just saying.
I'm thinking more May, early May. Yeah.
And Mayor, I have a quick question on the box, bag and bundle. Is that something that would be like a twice-a-year cleanup, that you would just, everyone would put everything out to the curb on a semi-annual basis?
It would depend on which option you guys want to do.
I think that one said that it would happen the same day as your garbage day, but you could bring extra stuff out on the curb.
Yeah, so if your garbage day was Monday, we'd pick up your bulk on Monday. If it was Tuesday, it would be Tuesday. It just makes it so much easier that way. And then the residents, it's really easy to remember that also.
Yeah, I really like that program because it is easy to remember, and it seems like it would be really successful because everybody has something they need to get rid of that's not going to fit in that can.
the one challenge I see is, it's by the hour. And so we don't know how many hours would be involved there. And so we'd have to.
And the thing is too, so that's why, because it's a different program, and it's our rear load trucks are mainly just used in Salt Lake City and West Valley City. So we'd be bringing a special truck up here. So we kind of actually don't know how this is going to go the first time around. So then we can always sit down and decide, you know, well, what about this? And because we don't know how many residents either that would want to do this program.
Mhm.
So,
I think it's
yeah.
gonna be surprisingly high.
Probably would. So we'd have to figure out how to recoup, you know, our costs.
Couldn't we
for the
just
program.
make a budget, anticipate how much it would be if we were going to figure X amount of days, hours, and then put that in the budget and see if that hits it?
We can work it that way, but if everybody does it and we only cover half
Yeah.
the city, then we
Yeah.
would have to readdress that a little bit.
It's a little bit like the Alpine Days budget.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
but we got to start somewhere, so we
Yeah.
would start and get that,
Yeah.
get a baseline and then see how it goes. And if the next year we needed to increase it, we'd have to adjust the budget if it went over and then see how it worked and if everyone likes it.
And if you guys do think that all of the residents are gonna be pretty interested in this bulk program and that. So in South Salt Lake, what we do is, so if your trash day is on Monday, we tell the residents we're gonna pick them up on Monday because we are going to actually try to go through that. But if every resident has trash out, of course, it's gonna take us longer to pick it up. So if you think there's gonna be a big, you know, burst on all the trash and that, what we would do is, so then if your trash day is Tuesday, we would pick you up on Wednesday. And that, because the reason why we'd want to do that, if you think all of your residents are going to participate, because if we don't finish that route on Monday, if your trash day is Monday, we will come back out on Tuesday and finish that route. But we do not tell the residents that because we don't want them putting the trash out on Monday or Tuesday. And that, so we just, I mean, Shane and myself, we would work all that out, but so, you know, there is other options out there too that we can do.
Don, I think you and I had a conversation on the phone a couple of months ago about
Yeah.
this.
The green waste.
Yes, the green waste. So we'll need a motion tonight to extend the contract for the additional 3 years. And I don't know if we need to or should include any language about any of these programs unless we discuss it further and decide what we want to.
I don't think we needed to. We just I thought it'd be good to take the opportunity
Yeah.
since Donna would be here to discuss those and get any direction from the council. You know, if you want us to focus in any one area. And Dawn looked at the calendar and we tentatively penciled in June 18th and 19th for the kind of, if we put bins at Creekside Park or some parking lot for that kind of spring cleanup initial event. So, and maybe we do that, see how it goes, you know, see how busy it is, how much comes in, and then look at these other options
Yeah.
from there.
So I guess my question, Hiram, do we need a motion to support that because it will be a city expenditure? That piece of it, but because that will cost the city some dollars, right?
Yeah, we would need a motion for this. And like Shane mentioned earlier, the thing Craig and I talked about was we'd really like to actually memorialize whatever terms we agree to here in terms of the 3-year extension. I know what Shane mentioned, it's an automatic clause, but to get that memorialized in writing for the next.
Okay.
Mayor, I had one question on the contract.
Yeah.
If that's- In the contract, it mentions like a tracking or list of the number of residences that are missed on occasion or things like that, and like a complaint log. And then it also mentions like an annual notice to every household on the holiday schedules or something. Are those things taking place? Does that go to staff?
Yeah, Dawn works with our ladies in the front office, and I mean, maybe it gets behind a month or whatever, but sometimes she'll send us 2 reports in 1 month or something like that. But we've talked about those over the last, you know, every year we talk about that, and I think it's working out fairly
Yeah, I think
well.
ACE has been really great to deal with. And I mean, I can neither confirm nor deny that my teenager forgot to put out the garbage a time or two. You guys have been terrific about circling back to us.
Just call us. We're here 5 days a week.
I don't know what other companies' policies are, but I don't know if everybody would come back if somebody forgot to take their garbage
Yeah,
out.
I
And
agree.
I think most
They
people
go
don't
above
even
and
know.
beyond.
no fault of ACE. Anyway,
I'll make a motion. that we approve the contract extension with the 3-year contract extension with Ace Disposal through June 30th, 2024.
Okay, we have a motion by Jason Thielen to approve. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Greg Gordon. Any further comment or question on the motion?
Probably should include the rates, their proposed rates. There's a couple of increases in there just to have that in the minutes.
Okay.
It's the 1.4%
1.4%
and the 25 to
increase in
29.
the tipping fee increase
Oh, yeah,
from
yeah,
25
yeah.
to 29
Yeah, because it was right here.
dollars per ton.
Okay, you want to include that? Bonnie, did you get that?
Yep.
The two-
And the
29.
increased tipping fees from $25 to $29 a ton.
Okay, and Greg, just to circle back.
Yeah,
Is
second.
that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jason Thielen, seconded by Greg Gordon. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you,
Thank
Don.
you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
As far as direction, Mayor, do you want to move forward with that event in June then, the
Yes.
18th and 19th?
Does anybody have an issue with that?
I personally don't care. I'd rather do a fall one if I was to pick a June or a fall. But that's just my opinion.
We
Probably
talked
good
about
for
doing both,
Both, yeah.
but it's up.
And
to-
this is where we just stick a bunch of garbage cans or just out in the parking lot and just let people know they can drop it off this day or.
Yeah,
And I think both sounds appropriate to me because you have your spring cleaning, but your fall, you do your pruning, you do a lot of other things in the yard.
Okay. Should I add that to a motion or a new motion? Or does it need to be?
Do you just need direction on that?
yeah, I think I just need direction.
Is that a weekend thing again then, or just they pick it up, drop it
Maybe
off
Friday,
Friday,
Saturday?
pick it up Saturday?
Right.
Okay.
I don't want to leave them overside.
No, you cannot leave a
We'll
dump,
come
you
back.
Fill up
cannot leave a
with-
dumpster anywhere overnight and expect it to
That's a good point.
not be full.
Yeah.
So any comments to the contrary? Okay, let's move forward with that.
If there is, we'll look at our budget and everything. We plan on bringing the budget amendment for this current budget year to the last meeting in June. So if we have to make some kind of adjustment, we can do it there.
Okay, great. All right, our next agenda item is regarding glass recycling by Momentum.
I had a presentation. Oh, yes. Yeah, I think Greg sent me the presentation. Is this? Okay, yeah.
I think this is it though, right?
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Mayor Stout and Councilmember Gordon, thanks for the invite to come down here and present on glass recycling. We really appreciate it. My name is Jason Utgard. I'm the general manager at Momentum Recycling. I'm here tonight to tell you a little bit more about Momentum Recycling, what we do in terms of glass recycling along the Wasatch Front, and then particularly about adding a glass drop-off location here in Alpine. Can I just cue you to go to the next slide or do I?
Yeah, you can just tell
Okay,
me.
so yeah, go ahead on to the next slide then. So Momentum Recycling, we are actually a locally owned and family-owned business. We were started in 2008, right in Salt Lake City. We started only as a recycling service collection provider. We did not own a glass recycling facility at that time, so we operated just as a recycling service provider for about 3 or 4 years. And the family that was operating the business at the time and still is today recognized that the city did not have a reliable outlet for glass recycling. And at the time, the facility that they were taking it to was kind of on its way out, and there was no other location anywhere in Utah to take glass for recycling. And so essentially in response to the state's need, the community's need, we opened a glass recycling facility in Salt Lake City in 2012, which you can see on the next slide. Actually, sorry, next slide. It's easier when I'm controlling it. So we're based right in Salt Lake City. If you've flown into Salt Lake City, you've flown right over our facility. We can process about 3,000 tons of glass per month at this facility. Right now, we are at about half capacity. Next slide, please. We service about 800 commercial customers. These are anyone from apartment complexes, bars and restaurants, et cetera, as well as now over 10,000 residential households for the monthly curbside glass collection service. Next slide. So why recycle glass? There's numerous reasons here. One of the, there's, I think, a couple of different things I can touch on, but one thing that I like to touch on in particular about glass recycling is that glass is actually made of multiple different components. We have limestone, sand, borax, dolomite, and soda ash. We also have cullet, which is recycled glass. But soda ash is a key component to making glass, and that there's only one deposit in all of North America of soda ash. It happens to be in Green River, Wyoming, which is fairly close to here. But that deposit only has about 50 years left on it. So to be able to make glass in North America, you're gonna have to source soda ash from somewhere else. So by recycling glass, that can help us obviously extend the life of that deposit as well as the life of our landfills by not putting good recyclable glass into our landfills. And glass, out of all the materials that you can recycle, cardboard, paper, aluminum, plastic, can be recycled infinitely with no loss to the quality or the purity of the glass itself. So you can take a brown bottle, recycle it right into a brown bottle. And you can do that routinely in a closed loop system. Next slide, please. So what is accepted in the bins? All of your container glass that you have at home, any food container, as well as any windows. What's not accepted as we see as a common contaminant is porcelain, ceramics. We do see some mirrors, basically because it has a laminate on there, we can't recycle it, as well as light bulbs. I included the list on the right side because I always like to kind of address the elephant in the room related to glass recycling. You don't have to be an alcoholic to recycle glass. Personally, if you come and visit our facility, you will see that there are a lot of food containers in our pile. One that I see very common is baby food jars. Glass is the safest container to store any type of food in. That's why all of your baby food comes in a glass jar. And so obviously you have pasta and other things in your home. So every home obviously has glass in the refrigerator. We need to help get that recycled just responsibly. Next slide, please. So we have specially designed trucks that will transport this to our Salt Lake City facility where it is processed. You can go on to the next slide and I'll tell you about where it goes to. So the thing with glass recycling is that it has to be used locally. So about 70% of the glass that we collect and recycle goes down to southern Utah to be to Nephi, to be made into fiberglass insulation at the Owens Corning facility down there. That then goes back into local construction projects, Lowe's, Home Depot, et cetera. The other glass, mainly the brown glass, because that has to be recycled, processed separately, is used for sandblasting media or for bottle making. Next slide. And I always want to invite anybody in the council, anybody listening in, you're always welcome to come into our facility. We are total open door policy. We want you to come and make sure that it's not being dumped in the desert and that it's being responsibly recycled. So if you are near Salt Lake City or by the airport, give us a call and come on by and we'd be happy to give you a tour. So a public drop-off location, I wanted to kind of tell you about the option that we have for Alpine because it is versatile. It's kind of an entry-level option as I refer to it as, and we refer to this as a glass pod. And so you can see a picture there on the left side, and we can go into the next slide and I'm going to tell you exactly what it's composed of. So essentially it's 4 64-gallon carts, similar to what you might have at your house. They are on a steel base. They are locked to that base. So they can't be stolen. Each one of the individual containers is also has a lock on it, and it also has a hole cut on the top of it that's just big enough to fit the majority of bottles and glass that would be deposited in there. The sign on the top clearly indicates what is accepted in the bins. It has anti-graffiti laminate on it as well as anti-fade. So we've had these deployed out in the field for almost 5 or 6 years, and they still look exactly the same way. And one of the benefits that I like to point out versus having a roll-off dumpster, for this particular use, a glass pod doesn't take up much space. So it doesn't really need to have to take up multiple parking spots. It can be placed someplace with a small footprint. It can also be expanded. So if the volume obviously increases, then you just add more carts and we secure that to the same base. We can service that with the same truck. Best locations are high traffic areas. They're visible from the street and they don't take up much space. Pretty straightforward. Next slide, please. So a lot of the popular locations where we have them are public parks, they're municipal buildings like at City Hall here, at a police station or fire station. And the one that Councilmember Gordon suggested was at the Alpine Elementary School, which we'll touch on as well. And next slide, please. One thing that we also provide to the city, this is helpful, is that you do get reporting. We'll even give you access to our system. So anyone on your staff can log in and see how well the drop-off location has been performing. If there's been any incidents of contamination, our drivers will actually record that with images and document what happened in that incident. So we provide you with basically access to see how this service that you're receiving is performing. Here's a proposed location that's directly west of the parking lot. It's next to the existing cardboard and mixed paper recycling bins. And next slide, please. So the cost of this setup, I broke it down here in as much of an itemized list as I could possibly provide to you so you can see why it comes out to about $700. We actually think it's going to be a little bit more than that, but essentially comes with everything that you see there. And then the additional carts, if the city would like to add additional carts, since they're basically purchasing the pod for use, each additional cart is $70. And then if there's additional locks, those are $25 each. Next slide, please. So for a cart pod, the service fee per pickup is $80. For each additional cart, it would be $8. So the idea here is instead of adding additional pickups, you would add maybe a few additional carts to keep your costs down. And then we kind of get an idea of the volume being generated. And one last component about it is that we do plan to offer the city a quarterly rebate of $5 per ton for the city to use at its discretion per Councilmember Gordon's suggestion. So general service agreement, it's very basic. One thing is that, and I kind of listed the elements of it that require Momentum Recycling to actually perform on a professional level, to have insurance requirements. All of our trucks, by the way, have forward-facing and driver-facing cameras and tracking devices in them. So safety is very important to us. We also will respond and clean up any spilled glass. We'll ensure that the glass collected obviously is responsibly recycled and those types of components. And we can provide a draft of a similar agreement that we've provided and executed with other municipalities as well. Next slide, please. I think that's it. I tried to go as quickly as I could. It's sometimes hard to educate folks all about glass recycling within a short period of time, but I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, can I just add a couple points? So I think one of a few things that make this a potentially good fit for Alpine. So we don't have the population or maybe the production to have a curbside program like Park City or a lot of Salt Lake County actually. But we have had several, inquiries from residents. I think Carla's brought it up a couple times. So, there has been some. Now today, the closest spots are like 20-minute drives. It's down by I-15 or American Fork. It's quite a ways. Anyway, and this in general, I guess their number is 5% of waste is glass. It's probably lower here, but there is some savings on our tipping fees to offset a little bit. But yeah, it seems like part of the attraction too is the glass stays local. It's in state. It's manufactured in state. When glass is discarded, so like a plastic bag takes 20 years, aluminum cans 200 years to biodegrade. But glass is the hardest of all. It takes 1 million years to biodegrade a glass bottle, and yet it can be recycled endlessly, 1,000 times. So from a recycling standpoint, there's lots of energy savings and and material savings and so on. So, you know, this could give us an option as another type of recycling service for a relatively low fee. It was my reading of.
Great, thank you, Greg. Jason, you have anything? Okay.
All right, one more thing. What would you expect for a city like our size? Would you expect us to utilize what have you seen as far as usage?
That generally depends on awareness about the drop-off location. That's one thing that we have to make sure to kind of work with the city on communicating to residents as soon as it is placed. We placed drop-off locations before, and if nobody knows about it, it's hard to actually get it to fill up. So I actually think that what we propose right here is kind of a good initial start. If there's any overflow glass that a resident places next to the container, of course, we'll pick that up or record it, and we'll adjust the frequency accordingly. So I think what we're proposing right now is a good kind of entry-level option, if you will. But one way to kind of ballpark how much glass the city would generate would be to take the population, multiply it by 70 pounds. That's how much each of us generate of how much glass waste each of us generate each year. You can divide that by 2,000 to get the number of tons, and then divide that by 12 months, and that's how you can figure out pretty closely how much glass is being generated each month in the city.
And my only other thing would be, obviously we've got recycle bins right there. We just had people complain about pickleballs next to their house, Here we're taking another thing and sticking next to those. I just wondered if it would be beneficial to spread this somewhere else, or do we just put this next to the neighbors and says, you've been doing it before, it's worked before, just take another one.
Yeah, I think the pod concept is to go more in like a park area that would be away from homes. Is that fair? But if we went to a larger site, then it would have to go over. That's what's being proposed next to the cardboard recycling.
Well, is the cardboard recycling though, the school district's location though?
I think it is, and so I talked to
we have to get
Principal
permission?
Purdue about it, and he was agreeable with
Okay.
hosting this there. And so that's part of the idea. Some people would take in their recycling there. Since there's 3, it gets quite a bit of use on the cardboard side, but.
But that is school property on the other side of the road.
I believe it
That
is,
surprises me. I
unless
didn't
someone,
think it was.
yeah.
Okay.
Would we want to include neighbors in it all in the discussion, based on what we had earlier today?
Just one moment, please, and then happy to have you come up.
I'm guessing that's a neighbor.
Yeah,
It's neighbor.
yeah, okay. Any other questions for the presenter? Jessica, anything? Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Come right up to the front if you'd like. Your name and
My name
address?
is Kaylann Wood, 496 North Wilderness Drive. I did not come for this, but my neighbor's backyard backs up to these
Dumpsters.
recycling places. And the cardboard is never picked up, and it's always a mess, and it's in it's right next to her fence. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to represent her because I know how frustrated
Yeah.
she is. with
Yeah,
it.
and thank you.
And when I brought this up with Principal Purdue, he did say that, that it is a bit of a challenge, right? People sometimes fills up and they'll sometimes leave their boxes there. And it's not really, I don't think, our service or even, but he's saying this is local people here just kind of leaving messes. And then the glass recycling, I think, is different, right? It's routine. We probably, they're careful to ensure that they sweep up and ensure. Mostly, I think, I don't think there's a lot of broken glass around this, just because the people go to the work to bring it there. They're not going to drop it on the ground. But when they do, there's they're very careful. So.
Any other comments or a motion?
Make a motion, Mayor, to approve the glass recycling proposal from Momentum Recycling as proposed.
Okay, so we have a motion by Greg Gordon. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Jessica Smealing. Okay, any comments or questions on the motion? Go on.
Would we have this begin in the next year's budget? Is that what we're anticipating, that this would move into next year's budget and start in June? Is that?
You could, or we could work it out to do it now. It's, you know, with the cost and everything, it's not significant.
By next year,
You'd
you
have it
mean the
in this
22 budget?
in this year's, paid for in this year's budget, and then work it into next year's.
Yep.
Okay,
My
Jason?
my only other thing is, in the motion, should we put where we're gonna put it?
Yeah. Are there other alternatives?
The shop, I'd say no, because we're already really
That's
tight
right.
on space.
And I think we talked about that before, the problem, and also no one really drives through there, or recycles there. I think we tried it before, right, with other bins.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough call, because if it's on private, near private property, there will be objections to it. Do we have any space on this block for it? That would make sense. So perhaps maybe part of the motion is that we don't move forward until we have a designated location. But that's gonna take some thought, I think, to go into. It might be hard to hammer
Well-
that out tonight.
Or Greg could assign a location. if you wanted to.
I mean, I propose we put it at Alpine because you have cardboard recycling
Mayor, if I may,
there. If it's, yeah,
I was just gonna say, so the cardboard's actually been moved. It's no longer in that location that was in the picture that we saw.
Mhm.
It's actually been moved so that the school can only use it now. So that might change
it's in their
where we
parking
want to
lot.
put it, the parking lot.
That's recent. Yeah.
From Momentum Recycling's perspective, it doesn't matter to us if we have to agree upon a location and keep that in the contract. We can put wording in there if the city decides to relocate it. That's totally fine. We'll come down and relocate it for you.
Pretty easy to relocate, really.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily have to be included in there.
I just think it's healthy for us, since it's a decision we're making as a council, to just be on the same page with where we want to put it. Because where we put it, it's gonna affect property owners. So if we're gonna do it, let's at least own it and say, versus just say, we'll decide later. I don't know the process of coming back to city council. We're gonna vote on it and get on a location. I don't think that's the best way for us to do it either.
Okay. So would you like to suspend the motion until we designate a location?
No, I mean, if you have a place to put it and you want to put it in your motion, I think we can vote on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we could put it at Alpine Elementary. If they've moved those recycling cans, I think they could put this by them. But we could, talk to them and see where they'd prefer to put it. If there's issues there, we can move it or adjust, I think.
Do you think Highland would notice if we put it there?
We could try it.
I agree with Greg. If we've had recycling in that location by Alpine Elementary, it's a logical fit. And it sounds like this will be picked up in a more timely manner. We could reevaluate it if it becomes a nuisance and there's broken glass everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's right. And cardboard we tend to get far too much cardboard for the market, but glass is a different. Yeah, so I'll amend my motion to state that it be located at Alpine Elementary by the cardboard recycling.
Okay, but is that possible because the cardboard recycling has been moved onto elementary school property?
It was their property before as well.
Yeah.
So it's still their property.
But what kind of?
I don't think it's accessible to the public as easily as accessible as it used to be, though.
No, I think it's a public location.
Is
That's
the
what
cardboard
those aren't for the school. Yeah, and they're at every school. Westfield has it, Timberline has it.
Okay.
And I think, all of them, yeah.
Okay, great. So Bonnie, did you catch that amendment? Okay, and Jessica, are you still okay seconding that motion as amended?
Yes.
Okay, so we have an amended motion to approve and locate the recycling been at the elementary school, Alpine Elementary. Any further question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so the motion prevails at 3-1. And so we'll move forward.
I just want to say, I like the idea of it. The location thing, I think, has to be more thought through, but I like the idea. I still don't know where it's going, even with that motion, but thanks, Greg, for looking into that.
Just so out of curiosity, rethinking along that fence line across the street or near where the new location for the cardboard is?
Well, I guess where the new one is, if they move the cardboard, they'd probably want it by there.
Yeah, that pulls it away from residents.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
And just to be clear, their cardboard recycling program has nothing to do with the city.
Yeah.
It's not funded, or it's a school
Yeah.
thing, right?
And I think they get some minor rebate.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next item, line item C, the lawn nailed fence approval. This is something we discussed in our last meeting. Have we, I forgot to check my notes on this. Where are we on this now?
We asked them to go back and they came back.
Yeah, so what we've essentially done on this is we've had the city attorney draft a lease agreement that would be worked out with between the homeowner and the homeowner, the HOA and the city. So the fence is located on public right of way, which is owned by the city. In between the home and the right of way is a strip of public open space, or not public open space, private open space. And so that's why the HOA is also involved in this. But the lease agreement essentially gives them permission.
Let me just start. It's not really a lease agreement. It's really a license to encroach.
Okay.
In my mind, it's a little bit different, just to clarify that.
Right, so it's an agreement that the city maintains control of that right of way. In the event that we want the fence moved, they have a time frame that they have to move it by. But we're essentially giving them permission to have that fence in that location for the time being until the city deems it would need that area back.
So looking toward the end of that contract, let's say we needed this fence to move, are we requiring a specific type of footing for the fence so that it's easily removed?
No, but they do bear the cost of whatever it is to remove it, so.
So it's removal and restoration then?
Mhm.
Okay,
They just have to be able to move within 180 days. So,
okay.
yeah.
I'll make a motion.
Please.
Make a motion, talk about it if you want to, but I make a motion to approve the agreement and license to encroach on the right of way at 968 Coil Ridge Circle.
Thank you, Jason. In an effort to move toward efficiency, Jason made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
Second that?
Yeah.
Okay, motion made by Jason Thielen, seconded by Greg Gordon. Any questions on the motion, Lon? Okay, Jessica, anything?
No,
Is this all along that one address? 968, or does it extend?
I think it's
north.
Yes. Yeah.
On
Yeah.
one lot.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 I,
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Thank you, Jason, for that quick motion.
Again, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, Willow Canyon, item D. Austin?
Yes, okay, so this is a home that is being proposed in the Willow Canyon subdivision. The Willow Canyon subdivision does have an agreement between the Willow Canyon HOA Architectural Review Committee and the city itself. So when it was annexed into the city as part of the annexation agreement, no home could be taller than 25 feet above the natural grade. And so that's written into their restrictive covenants up there. However, exceptions have been granted in the past, and the way that's been done is if the HOA or Architectural Review Committee signs off on that, and then also the city then basically revokes its, let's see, the term is waives its right to enforce the height restriction. So we've waived our right to do that on other homes up in that area that have gone above the 25 feet. The idea behind this was that they didn't want to have big, large homes on the hillside creating an eyesore. So they tried to keep the homes relatively close to the natural terrain. That being said, the last few lots that are up there are difficult to work with. Some of them have ravines in them, hence the need for exceptions. And so this is one of those. And the setback exception that they're requesting is an 8 foot 6 inch deviation from so basically 32 feet and 6 inches would be above the natural grade. The tallest, I mean, there have been higher exceptions granted in the past. I think the highest one was one that came through in 2019, the Wittenberg home, which was 14 feet 2 inches above the limit that's there. So this would be not, half of what that other one was.
Actually be 33 and a half feet, right?
Let's see here. Yeah.
25 and 8.5. Yeah.
It's 8 feet, 25, yeah. Yeah,
So-
33.
So Austin, from this front view from the street, how tall is it here? From the,
So let me get you, there's a more helpful diagram
is the natural
here.
grade change
Yeah.
there?
So let's,
Because as I understand it, it's because it's on a downhill slope, right? And that's,
yeah, there is, let's see if I can get the profile. Okay. So this is, get you a better idea of what you're actually looking at. So this shows top back of curb. And so that's the HOA, they like to have that number so they can see where it is in relation to the street. So this is the grade here. If we zoom in on this, get the measurements for you.
Okay, Shane, well, he's looking for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like this agreement, that we had in place since the subdivision was approved of 25 feet from natural grade, that is it's different than it is throughout the rest of the city, because the rest of the city gives us improved grade, right?
Yeah.
Which has been an issue. And I guess this is a sidebar discussion, but it's strange to me that we're measuring from natural grade here, but the rest of the city is from improved grade. It seems like it'd be more logical to apply natural grade to the rest of the city as well. So that may be a discussion for another time, but I think that's what I was getting at in my request earlier for the Planning Commission to reevaluate that policy.
If we do it, I highly recommend it's not 25 feet.
Yeah, I understand that because and to Austin's point earlier on, originally this subdivision was approved with the stipulation that 25 limit was imposed. But since then, and for good reason, because we didn't want tall houses going up on the hillside, which make them appear to be even taller, and you kind of erase the hillside. But Austin, my question is, do we have a single house in this subdivision that has not received an exception?
There is one, yes.
One house.
And I think it actually has a flat roof on it.
Yeah.
Tried really hard. They actually made an effort.
Yeah. It's frustrating to me that we have this precedent established that, well, there's this rule, but you get an exception every time. And I know that there are challenges to building in that area. But to me, again, and as a council member, I brought this up, it seems that the evaluation of the property's value and buildability would be based on the knowledge that there is a limitation on the elevation and not necessarily the almost sure bet that the city council will approve a restriction or an exception. And so we're going through this rehearsal that it almost seems to be a defined outcome previous to the discussion. And I guess as a former council member who was very much in favor of limiting the height of buildings on the hillside, it's frustrating to see that that really isn't a limitation. Does that make sense? That's my editorial of
Yeah.
this issue, of this item.
Agreed. And this one's on the west side of the road, though. I think it's going downhill versus on the
Yeah,
uphill,
yeah.
but yeah.
And every lot
point
is
taken.
unique to itself, right? And so obviously there are things that need to be evaluated in each case. Would you like to come forward?
I'm also not here for this. This is right above my house. I saw that address and I'm like, oh, that's right above my house, just
Yeah.
east of me. And so I know exactly where this is at. And so when you're talking about natural grade and improved grade or whatever that was, they're definitely gonna build that, they're gonna have to improve that grade. And so it's going to be even taller. They're not gonna put their house in the ravine. They're not gonna build that down on the slope. And so it's going to be even higher than the 25 feet is plenty high, and add another 9 feet to it. And it just blocks the mountain for everybody and takes up the hillside and be down below. So
Yeah.
I know you're frustrated that people just come in here and get it no matter what, but consider going the other direction.
Thank you very much.
Stand strong.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry. Kristen Shelley, 185 North Country Manor Lane.
Thank you, Kristen.
And actually, it will be built down.
Yeah.
You know,
It looks
typically
like
on a
it's built
house, the contractor goes out and they might get the elevation of the curb and then raise the house a couple of feet or whatever, so that there's slope from the front of the house to the curb. In this case, the road and curb is up here and the house will actually have a down sloping driveway into the home. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks for that.
From the street, you'd actually look onto almost
On
look
the
onto
roof.
of the home.
Yeah, there's a couple of other homes that are that way along that street
Yeah.
as well.
Another key thing, another key restriction on this too is it's measured to the peak of the home, whereas in the city, we measure to the midpoint
Average.
of the roof. And so
Right.
that really restricts you significantly.
Yeah, so a 33-foot home doesn't necessarily have the same profile as a 28-foot home elsewhere. It may have the
Yeah,
same or even
exactly.
lower. Yeah,
And Austin, did you figure out what is the height from the street?
Yeah, so it's 5190 is the elevation, and the top of the foundation would be 5182.5. So it's a difference of 7.5 feet between back of curb and the top of the foundations. So I guess, is that what you're asking, the difference between?
Yeah, the highest
And so-
point on the roof, is that?
The highest point
That's
on
the
the roof,
difference
I
in the
don't
foundation.
have that
Right, so the house-
elevation, maybe it's on, yeah.
I mean, they
don't-
show 33.5 here, right? But that looks like it's even above the chimney.
we have a representative of the owner here, right, in the meeting somewhere?
Yes, we do. Yeah,
Online?
he's online right now on Zoom.
Okay, are there any comments that he would like to make?
Yeah, I just unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
So I appreciate your comments and thanks for taking a look at this with us. I think that what was mentioned before, just in the fact that we are going down to the natural grade, the house is going to look more depressed than what may appear from other areas. So we've strategically taken the driveway across the frontage of the house to obtain that. I think we're at 11 or maybe 12% slope coming down the driveway, coming across into the garages and whatnot, to accommodate that downward slope. So as mentioned before, there are some pretty challenging, I mean, we originally were planning on going a 2-story. We ended up scaling it back down. We were trying to comply the best we could to both meet the needs of the CCNRs as well as the request for this beautiful area. We've worked long and hard to satisfy the request from the Architectural Control Committee with Joel Kester there, with colors, with heights and landscaping and just everything that's been involved. It's going to be a beautiful home in a beautiful area, not an eyesore. As far as I think that the one of your residents there that made the comments of being up and obscure, the views being shut down. I think that it's going to be a lot less than maybe perceived, just because of what was mentioned before. We do have to really push the house down. On a lot like this, I typically would be bringing in, hundreds of loads of dirt to fill the foundation. In this situation where we have to depress the ground as much as we are, we'll be exporting dirt. That's just the way it's likely going to be happening, considering what we have to be dealt with. So I'm open for questions and happy to help.
Thank you. Any questions by council, or do we have a motion ready?
No, it looks like it's 29 3 inches, in their diagram there. So, and seemingly that's dropping about 7 feet from the road street level.
Back a curb.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Yes.
Based on the fact that this is 6 feet less, and we've kind of lost our ability to really, it's not really fair for us to say a year or two ago, we allowed them bigger. I'm going to make a motion and move that the city waive its right to enforce the height restriction found in the Willow Canyon annexation agreement, so long as the height did not exceed 8 foot 6 inches above the 25-foot height limitation.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Jason Thielen. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Lon Watt. Any question on the motion?
Only other thing I would add, if we've had this before and we're going to have this again, and the same thing will happen. It might be beneficial for our city to go back to this subdivision, and with the annexation agreement, if possible, maybe say, we're going to change this and we're going to increase it by 8 foot or 9 feet or 7 foot, whatever. But I don't know if it's possible, but right now we have nothing. Last time we had a 14-foot 2-inch one that was higher. This is 8 foot 6. Next one could be 16 foot. If we had something that said, all right, guys, we're going to reset the bar, we could put ourselves in a better situation than where I feel we are right now, which is if we're going to approve one, it's not really fair to say, yeah, you can't for similar slope related things.
How many more lots do we have in that?
Not
subdivision?
very many.
Just a few.
Three,
Two or
maybe.
three.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of.
If you recall, when we went through this before, we actually, the architectural review, design committee were approving them, and it didn't even hit the city council.
Yeah, well, that's why it's here tonight.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, but even at that point, there were 30 different homes, or well, maybe not that many, but close to 30 that had some kind of an exception on that. And since I've been on the council 8 years, I think we've seen 3 of them. So,
yeah. Okay. Without any further questions on the motion, let's move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that sounds unanimous. The vote was unanimous. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Moving on to items E, zone change for Redwood Dental.
Okay, so this is regarding the property located at 183 North, 100 West. It's currently located in the TR 10,000 zone, which is our smaller residential zone. The proposal is to rezone that to business commercial. The proposal would use an existing home for a business, a dental office. This is located directly on 200 North. Just for reference, there are other businesses currently located on that roads. For example, Purple, the Snow Oasis, the Balance Dance Studio, among others. The Planning Commission did hear this item. They held a public hearing. There was, some of the neighbors came out. Some of them opposed to it. We did have some other public comments in favor of it. Ultimately, the planning commission did recommend to deny the zone change. Let me just go to the next page here. So this is a map of the location. So this is 200 north at the middle of the screen here. This is 100 west. On the right-hand side of 100 west over here, this is all business commercial, though that's the zone, but it's actually filled with homes. And on the left-hand side or the west side of 100 west is the TR 10,000 zone. So this home is on the corner. It's just basically on the wrong side of the road to be a business. And so that's why they're requesting the zone change.
Was that home was just recently listed and sold, wasn't it?
That is correct, yes.
Has it, I thought I still saw it for sale signs up. Is it?
Typically, a sign will remain up while
Okay.
it's under contractor. That's pretty normal.
Yeah.
Um,
But so the buyer is the applicant? Is that
Correct. Yeah, the buyer is the applicant.
Mr. Wood's actually here tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're here. So if you'd like to ask them questions or whatever, they're here to answer those.
Okay.
This is a picture of the home. They would basically keep it the same. It has sufficient parking. They try and beautify it a little bit, take care of it, but ultimately it would still look like a home. They're not trying to modify it, make it look like an office building or anything like that.
Challenge is we have boundaries for this and that doesn't fit in. So how does council feel about rezoning?
I think the challenge is we have a zoning is based on our plan, right? And we don't really rezone individual properties. I think in the rare cases that's happened, it's been a whole change to the plan, right? That's our challenge. What I'm concerned about is how do we then go to the home next door or down the road or down the street and say, well, you're right across from commercial, but it doesn't mean, and while, a dentist office, this wouldn't be obtrusive or a bad, this would be a fine probably fit on that road. But if for any reason it were to be sold, like a gas station could come in, right? Or a retail outlet of any form, which, I'm sure this would maintain the feel, but in the future, and we can't control that at all.
Right.
That's my concern.
And it does generate more traffic. It extends the area that could happen in. Even though a dental office is a pretty calm environment, not a lot of traffic, but it is additional to the neighborhood. I'm sorry, is it Wood?
Yeah.
Would you like to come up and make any comments?
Just
Answer any questions?
less than 2 minutes.
Sure.
Thanks for hearing it. I get your perspective completely, and I feel unfortunate there's not a zoning that's in the middle. It's kind of like, is it a pig farm next or what? So I felt like there was basically, you guys kind of get the general idea. That we would want to keep it the same and lovely. And I mean, I hear all these things for the glass recycling and pickleball. I'm like, well, if it's good with everybody, you can't please everyone. Like, I'll offer it up. What can we do to make it better for everyone? So I'd like to keep it and keep Alpine as great as possible. The three main objections that I've heard is it devalues the properties around it. And that's a debate. That's why we're here to talk about. Increased traffic. I'd argue it would decrease traffic. I never have more than 3 cars there at once. And the last one was, oh shoot, I was trying to figure out what was the other one. The last one I got was, the future. And that's the big unknown. We don't know. And to your point completely, all I can say, it comes down to trust. And it's like, well, how do you trust the guy that you don't know that's showing up today? And it's like, who would decide in the future? It's like, well, you guys would decide, the person does it next door. But I get it. And to the point with the height of the roof, we do it here. How do we not do it here, here, and here? So we've had a lot of support. There's been people that are opposed as well. And I totally get it. It makes sense. But I hope it would make sense, like you say, a dental office with the idea. And, time is of the essence with these things. And if we could take 2 years and figure out a middle grade zone, that'd be great. But, the market goes, it gets bought and sold in a day and a week, and it doesn't come up for another couple of years. So I've looked all around. This is my opportunity right here that I'm looking at. So thanks for taking the time, guys.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
Would you have to do ADA upgrades to that building?
88, oh, yeah, so that.
Ramps and things like that to get in.
To get ADA, yeah, we would need to put a ramp, I think just similar to the city council where there'd be a cement ramp that goes up and then turns up onto the
Front door?
Front door.
And the front door is big enough for a wheelchair and those type of things to get through already?
I think it needs to be 36 inches and I believe the front door is 36 inches.
And so with the square footage of that house, how many operatories are you thinking you'd put in there?
So my office currently has 3. I only work out of 2, so I'd only put 2 in there. I have less than, I'm a very weird dental practice. I'm open a day a week, sometimes 2 days a week. And that's the plan for the next 30, 40 years. I just take care of people I went to high school with and people I know and word of mouth. I've been here for 2 years. I haven't advertised at all, but there's no intention to change. So, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So I have a question about our current ordinances. Can't you have a commercial business out of a residential, for example, dance studios?
As I understand it, there's a conditional use available, but it needs to be owner occupied if it's a conditional use.
Correct.
Okay.
Home occupation.
Again, we did the ready, shoot, aim and bought the house. So we're trying to figure out any other options. But yeah, that was kind of an idea that we had. Yeah.
Well, and having worked in that industry for 23 years, 24 years, it's not uncommon to see a home converted to a dental practice. It's a fairly common thing, but there is a zoning issue.
Sure.
The challenge is that those are typically in a zone that already allows for business to occupy. And so I think what's coming before the council tonight is a real challenge because zoning changes are not made flippantly, and you understand that.
Yeah.
And it's a very difficult thing because you have people who purchase their homes based on the value, based on the fact that it's not in a business, even though this is across the street from a business district. There are things that come up in real estate transaction that are based on this kind of thing. So, there's consideration for that, and then there's consideration for what Councilman Gordon suggested, and that is, we have a plan, we have a master plan, and do we want to deviate from that plan? So I would put that to the council and ask for a motion or further discussion, whatever's needed. Just one moment, please. Thank you. Yeah. Is there anything that council would like to contribute to that discussion right now? Or make a motion?
I trust Aaron Wood for sure. What I don't trust is the future or the precedent, and that's my concern.
Totally.
Next door neighbors or down the road or just another part of the city, they're gonna say, this is just as good a use, and it gets us in this, just like the last one, we approved 14.2 before.
Yeah.
And that's now the high water.
Yeah, no, everybody's got a headache. All these things, it's like more headaches for everybody. So it makes sense. And I think from looking the way out, it makes sense, but you say, hey, what does this mean in the future?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. There's somebody who'd like to make a comment from the audience, but before we get to that, is there anyone who's prepared to make a motion at this point? Okay, sir, please come forward. But it would have to come up, so it's part of the records. You need to state your name and address, please.
So I'm a neighbor, so I was going to let this go forward if I thought this was going to be.
What is your name?
My name is Jeff McGee.
Okay, and Jeff, what is your address, please?
Address is 333 North Main Street. So
Thank
just
you.
Walked down the
Great,
street.
thanks.
I was going to let this go because it's late. If it looked like this was going to be denied, to just let it kind of go under its own weight. But if you're still considering, then I'll, if I can, say a few things.
Please.
So I live on North Main Street, but 2 years ago, my sister and brother and I bought the house at 226 Matisse, which is right across the street. So my parents live there. They're both in their mid 80s, but we own the home as an investment. And so I'm speaking really here tonight as an investor in the very neighborhood that we're talking about. So that's the approach I'm taking. I don't think I'm going to tell you anything new. As you were talking here, I was sort of ticking off some of my talking points tonight. So I would say for us, the big question is property values, as already been pointed out. Commercial has a very different feel. This was when I grew up in Alpine. This was Beulah Adamson's home. Walked by it on the way to school. And when an area changes from residential to business, commercial, then it just loses a feel. When we bought this property, we expected, I think reasonably expected, that this would remain residential and that it would keep that feel and therefore the property value. Once the zoning has changed, the horses left the barn. We've already talked about that. It's left a barn with respect to this property because we have no control over what happens with the property in the future. But it's also left a barn with respect to the west side of 200 North, the south side of 100 West, where it's hard, as someone mentioned precedent, it's really hard to tell other people why they can't change their properties. The other thing that perhaps wasn't really mentioned is there a need? Is there a need in Alpine for more dental offices? Is there a need in Alpine for more commercial space? And that's something that I think you know better than I do. But I think within a 10 to 15 minute drive of downtown Alpine, there's a lot of commercial space, a lot of places that a dentist office could be built. On the other side, there's been discussion tonight about the lack of affordable residential property. And this is affordable residential property, smack dab in the middle of it. I have some sympathy for the Woods, I have nothing against them. You know, they bought this with a plan, but other people also bought houses with a plan. And so it's a question of who bears the brunt of that? Who suffers the consequences of their plans, not being fulfilled? There are some other commercial properties. I think my time's up. There are some other commercial properties in the area, but this is smack dab residential. I mean, this area, you have to go quite a bit before you get to commercial. And then the last thing is the planning commissions, as you know, to study this very carefully, I think, and had a lot of public comment and recommended against it. So we would respectfully request as neighbors and investors and Alpine citizens that you deny this. Again, I'm sure the Woods are great people, and I hope that they're able to find a place that they can build a successful dental office.
Thank you very much. And just a point of clarification, you can see on the monitors, you can see the business district, which is colored in red, excuse me. And we do have a very clear definition. One of the I think mistakes that some people make is they assume because there are homes there that it's not commercial, which the reality is anything in that red zone could turn to commercial. This particular property is outside of that. So that's obviously the discussion tonight. But just as a point of clarification, one of those homes could be converted to a dental office or something else in the future, and it would be perfectly legitimate. That application would be. So Jason, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Just make a motion.
Sure, please.
I'll make a motion to deny the zone change for the property located at 183 North, 100 West in Alpine.
Okay, we have a motion to deny by Jason Thielen. Any second to that motion?
Second.
Oh, we have a second by Jessica Smewen. Any further discussion on the motion?
I just have a comment that this isn't going to be the last time we'll have someone come in and request a zone change, and even a business commercial zone change. And I do appreciate Mr. Wood for going through the process and looking at things and being very civil about everything about it. And we'll see some of these things again, but I like the definition of how the business commercial line is there right now. We've even talked about scrunching it up a little even on the north end, open it up a little on the south end, but that's all I have to say.
And just to be clear, there was several years ago, there was an application to expand it northward on Main Street to help accommodate a shop that it was then asked to move their shop elsewhere, and it worked out for them, and the city maintained its boundaries. So it's not the first and won't be the last, to Lon's point, but thank you very much, Mr. Wood, for your application and for the way you approached it. So we have a motion to deny. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is unanimous, but thank you very much. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item. Item F, open space, purchase proposal of Pfeiffer Horn.
Right, so this is located on the far north end of Pfeiffer Horn Drive, 539 Pfeiffer Horn Drive to be precise. There is an odd shaped lot there. Some of the council may remember this property from, I think it was a couple of years ago. They proposed a land swap there, the previous landowner, and That never actually got recorded. It was approved by the city council, but never got recorded. And then following that, the property was sold to a new property owner. And so that new property owner has purchased this odd shaped lot. It's very narrow on the front part of the lot, which is on Pfeifferhorn Drive. And he's seeking to purchase a section of the public open space that is there. And so this diagram more accurately shows what that looks like. This is lot 19 of the Swiss development. You can see his lot is existing frontage is 59 feet. A typical lot in Alpine City in this zone would be 110 feet. So it's quite a bit less frontage than your average lot. What he wants to do is purchase this little triangle. I guess it'd probably be easier if I draw it on here. So this triangle here is what he wants to purchase. The yellow line represents his existing lot line, green representing what he wants to purchase. Public open space is essentially this area here. So he wants to purchase that green triangle out of the purple triangle, essentially. The idea would be to square up the front of his lot, allow for a driveway access. It should be noted that in this area, there is a moisture evaporation box, which is remnant from the underground abandoned gas line that goes through here. That gas line does restrict what can be done on top of that area. So the gas line runs where that red line is. You can't build any structures over it. You can't plant any deep-rooted trees. What he wants to do is put a driveway across it. So, and that is permitted on top of that line. And so he just wants to square up the front of his lot. He would maintain the existing rear property line. So to give you the history on this, the original trade or swap, land swap, was to swap this triangle for this triangle, and it was a square footage, equal square footage for square footage trade. But like I said, that never got recorded. So here we are today with the existing recorded yellow property boundaries.
Austin, how wide would the city's parcel be there at the front if this were sold?
If that were sold, so it would be, it's 137 minus 60, so.
Roughly 78.
Roughly 78 feet would be remaining.
So that's more than enough for a road or an access of any form.
Yeah, and I also want to add to this, when this came through for the land swap, it was the trail committee was commented on this. This would be a great point for a trailhead to access trails on the west side. So you could still potentially do a trailhead even after this proposal here. Obviously, you're not going to have as much space as you would if we just left it as is.
Well, if you did an aerial there, you could see that it opens up back beyond the triangle there.
Yeah,
It's
maybe
where
I'll pull
you'd
up
have the
aerial
parking.
image of it.
There wouldn't be much parking on that front little triangle anyway. So slide it down a little there. So it'd be over in there.
We own all of that
Yeah.
in yellow. In addition, we also own, this is also open space here as well, so.
How wide is that entry canal there? Right in there.
Let's see if it's on the other, I guess we can get a rough measurement on here. Roughly 30 feet.
Austin, you'd need to go from where the current pipeline housing is, right there, from that point over to get a more realistic opening.
Yeah, so it's closer to 20 feet, which would be the width of a typical private driveway.
So with Will here, obviously, I remember this coming forward, we talked about having parking there, you know, and having it be accessed. Is there still a possibility for us to use that and have access up that way, based on what's going on up there right now? Sorry.
We talked about this, Will Jones, 999 Grove Drive. We talked about this as a trail committee the other night. Our issue is that we want to make sure that we do keep our access all the way back to there. And the more parking we get on any given night right now, 10 to 12 cars will be out on the road. And at some point, that's going to be unfun for those neighbors. And so, and that is one of the best accesses we have to those west trails, guys. There are more trails there now than there have been in the last 20 years. They're being built all the time. So we kind of oppose this. If we're doing something here, we'd rather see a swap where we gain more opportunity to put more parking, as much parking as we can, because like I say, right now, I bet if we left here right now and went up, there'd be at least a dozen cars up there. And I'm one of those dozen cars about 3 times a week there, because there's another parking, and this would give us good access back to that parking we got. I guess if you did anything here, taking the money and building the parking lot would be fine, you know.
Where would you build that parking lot if you were to sell that?
All the way to the back.
Yeah, can I touch the screen?
Yeah, you can, the
See
annotation's
green
turned
spot?
on, so you should be able to.
So the grade is pretty significant over here. You can't do
It's
there. but
very
it would-
steep.
It
You know where
would
Chill
be
that is,
in,
Jason?
all in that
That's
area.
that puke right there.
Right
first.
there, that would be the parking, and that is a fairly good size area, but.
Yeah, and we haven't laid out to see what it is, but I'd like to have that considered, look and see what we can build there. And again, giving away something without getting the parking is, we've got to, and I need a good access back to it. At least 12 feet getting back to the back. I don't know what the width of that is.
Well, I think your minimum will be 20 feet between that one.
We need that
structure.
Yeah, you need it, so it draws people. And I guess here's the question. Is it gonna be better to be that far back, or is it gonna be better to be seen a little closer to the road?
Yeah.
For parking.
Yeah, so, well, go ahead. Who are you asking?
Well, I'm just both. I'm just asking, that's just a general, that's a rhetorical question. That isn't one that you answer. That's just one of those that, you know, which ways does, but rather than sell, because that doesn't really do any of us any good, I'd rather see us keep ground or trade ground that we can get, that we can add more parking, because that's all that's gonna happen to that trail area just becomes more and more accessible. I mean,
Yeah,
every trail that's up there goes that way to the west.
yeah, it's becoming very popular.
It's a big one.
And it seemed like the original swap was the best solution.
I like
It
that.
squared up the lot.
That's
the
why
best, and
we
then
were
also-
saying we were happy with that, because
Yeah.
it gave us a square up area there, and we still got parking back to the back. So
Yeah.
More parking.
more
Is
parking.
that
That's-
not on the table any longer? Are you the owner?
Yeah.
All right, come on up.
Michael MacArthur, own the lot, 539 Piper Horn. So it's not on the table. I don't want to swap buildable land for unbuildable land. Hopefully that makes sense, which is why I wanted to purchase that piece. And if you can actually look at where that moisture box is sitting above ground, 4x4, you're not going to be able to put a parking lot there. You can't put any parking spaces there. It's unusable for the city for a parking lot. You still have the rest of the room to do those parking stalls you need. So yeah, if you go and look at the lot, or you zoom in here, you can't pave over that anyway. So I'm going to use that to landscape around it, but it doesn't take up a parking spot.
You're saying that you couldn't get like 3 or 4 parking stalls off the road anywhere along that?
I mean, we can maybe zoom in a little bit, and I'll show you what I mean.
Or do a street view, drop down and.
Because we did that parking for bikers, but we only have like 4 spots or 3 spots up 300 north there on Bald Avenue Drive.
Oh, yeah, that little tiny
It's
spot.
just a small little thing,
pull
but
out.
but it's a benefit to the city for people, and I see people using it all the time, so.
Yeah.
Okay, that piece right there. Well, yeah, that's it.
So why couldn't you do a?
Yeah, we're
parking lot
talking
in there?
about taking from back up there. So you got that little triangle right there.
You can draw on the screen that's in the
Oh,
thing
perfect.
there.
This isn't up.
Yeah,
Do I need to do anything to make it live?
no, it should be live. You just touch the color you want to use and then.
Oh, it's just
you-
black.
Oh, is it black?
Oh, then use white.
Okay. Well, I guess not.
Is it not working?
Unless there's a way to turn it on up there. I don't think I can control it from over here. Maybe I can. Let me see.
We have over 60 feet of frontage there.
60 feet, but also slanting back.
Slanting back, but that's not to say you couldn't put 4 or 5 if you wanted to in there, in the 60 feet. That's a lot of space. Even though it is slanting back, like you mentioned.
The one drawing was kind of the plan view of the lot and had the yellow highlight on it. It shows that box on there, I think, in the property lines. It might be helpful.
I'm just going to remind council that we have 30 minutes left in this meeting.
Sorry, yeah.
officially.
I'll close my remarks then, which is, I want to take that piece. It's currently not being used. It was talked about being used for a trail 3 years ago. Still is no trailhead here. I'm gonna make it pretty. I'm gonna maintain it. I'm gonna landscape that from the road view. It's gonna look a lot better. You still have full access. Doesn't stop the access. You can do parking spots there and in the back if you need to. So not affecting the access. So that's my proposal. Thanks.
So what I was trying to ascertain is, is there any use to this property here? Is it property we wouldn't use or have value from? Or the small triangle in the back, would that be especially useful? Is there a different exchange rate or something, is it maybe not a 1-to-1 or something? I don't know, is that all buildable in the back triangle? I don't know.
Comment as well.
If you come up to the front and introduce yourself, tell us where you live.
Yes,
We all
I'm
know, but you-
Christy Allen, 171 South Hawthorne. So Alpine resident, but also builder for this house. So I just wanted to comment on what hasn't been brought up is that at the planning commission meeting, they actually unanimously felt that this small triangle, because of the shape of it, and because of that water retention thing, would be really difficult actually to use as parking in relation to the rest of the piece that was there. Whereas by landscaping it and by making it look really nice, they felt like it would make it easier and more appealing to have that trailhead entrance there square and easier to access. And then it would look better for everyone in the neighborhood. They felt very positively about it and were excited about it. So just by looking at that triangle space, you can see it's not a great shape for a parking lot anyways. You could probably finagle a few cars in there, yes, around the water area and in that corner, but it's really not the best use of that property. It'd be much better use. And also lots in Alpine are no longer allowed to have this small of an access because it does make it so difficult for us to be able to build on it and have access. So I think it makes sense for the city to allow it to have that wider frontage that it should have had anyways in the first place when it was developed. So those are my comments.
Okay, thank you.
The frontage part of that's not entirely accurate. So we measure our frontage at the 30-foot setback. So if you offset the front property line back 30 feet, it would have the frontage, which this was a PRD, so it could be down to 90 feet.
That's what the planning commission said about it.
Yeah. I'm right, but I'm not gonna rub it in their face, right? But that is why it's similar to like a cul-de-sac where we take can't think of a tangent line and offset it back 30 feet, and that's where we measure it. So.
Well, I wonder if it would help us if we had sort of a trailhead design there, right? Then we might know, what our parking situation is, our
What we
pathway, yeah, and then we could, better determine how much we need where or not,
Well, let me ask this, with that in mind, let me ask this question, Shane. How much time would be needed if this were to be pushed back to one more meeting where we could have that design created and a proposal for the lot, for that parking lot trailhead, so that we could determine whether this is a good deal for the city?
It would just shuffle things around that we're doing, but it wouldn't take long to kind of lay something out here. I mean, if you think of the Lambert Park South parking lot, we actually have that power box that we just kind of designed around it. And I could see a similar situation here, but maybe both things could be accomplished and we could have some kind of parking lot here out front without this triangle that they're proposing to purchase. I don't agree with that it's unbuildable property and it should cost less. In my mind, it's improving the value of that lot by widening the frontage. So
yeah. And I don't know any lot that's selling, an acre lot that's selling for 400,000 anymore either on top of it.
It is unbuildable. I mean, can't build. Yeah, so that's the definition of unbuildable.
yeah, but yeah.
But as far as value.
It's hard to say it doesn't increase the value of your lot. And that's how I read that statement.
Okay, yeah. I was just, putting it out there.
I mean, it makes your lot more accessible with a wider frontage and everything. And, yeah, so.
Doesn't necessarily increase the building envelope, it just increases the spans of the property. Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
All right. Jason.
I'll make a
Before
motion.
I apologize, Council Member Thielen, before we move on with this, I've expressed to Shane and Austin as well as I think this, at this juncture, I recommend against making a motion on this. The reason being is recently the Utah legislature amended the municipal code, and anytime a city is dealing with the disposal of real property owned by the city, they have to designate whether the parcel is significant or insignificant. Alpine is yet to take that step of passing an ordinance defining what is significant or insignificant parcels within their city. If it's a significant parcel, so I can provide you the code in case anybody's curious with it, it's 10-8-2 sub 4. Anyways, before any significant parcel can be sold under the definition described here and under the definition that would be passed by Alpine, there has to be 14 days notice, and reasonable notice must be given before any parcel could be sold. Any real property could be sold owned by the city. So
that's specific if you're selling it. If the motion is to deny.
Yes, I apologize, and I shouldn't have.
Would that be different?
That would be different, yes, and I apologize.
That's what my motion is. All I can make a motion to deny the proposal to sell the 101,738 square feet of public open space as it has value to the Alpine City Trail System.
Okay, we have a motion by Jason Thielen to deny. Do we have a second to that motion? Going once, going twice. Okay, the motion fails based on the lack of a second. Do we have another motion?
I'd make a motion to table the request to be able to see further layout of a parking and trail access.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jessica Smuin. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Greg Gordon. To me, this makes sense, and I'll just want to make a quick comment, Lon. This makes sense to give us a chance to further evaluate what we would do with the land if we kept it, or what could be done if we parted ways with it that would still benefit the city. We may find a way that both sides win. But that it seems to be a topic that should be evaluated a little more closely, and the consequences of that decision one way or the other. That's my only comment. Lon?
Okay, I think our attorney has told us we need to do something else anyway along this line. So we need to get started on that. I don't know that needs a motion, it just needs work. That we need to get that in the works so for the next city council to go ahead and get that passed so that we can proceed with this anyway. Because if we're going to move into seeing if there is a value to it, we need that in place.
Or would that be municipal code or development code? But no, if we adopt, it's a difference in process. So if it's municipal, it would come directly to the city council. If it's development, it has to go through planning commission. So
And public hearings. Yeah.
And Hiram, does that apply whether it's land disposal or a land swap?
So-
No, is it
so-
the same?
I mean, I think I would probably read it as either, but
Either.
so just so you know, the provision says before a municipality may dispose of a significant parcel of real property, the municipality shall, then it gives you the 14 days notice, and the city gets to define what reasonable notice is, but it has to provide reasonable notice 14 days in advance and an opportunity for the public to comment on that disposal.
Okay,
So I'm gonna say one last thing, if that's okay, Mayor. Sure. Asking permission. My thought again, is you don't sell property if it has value to the city. And if we say this doesn't have value and it's a strip of land that we shouldn't be doing this as a favor to the homeowners.
Right.
If it hurts our residents long-term. We had our Trails Committee come in just now and said, we would recommend keeping it. The city does not need $9,000 to survive. There's not a benefit of like, oh, thank heaven we got our $9,000. Glad we gave up that property. But once we give this #1 spot to hit the northwest side of Alpine, once we give it away, we can't get it back. And I don't see why we're benefiting at all as a city by selling this. So that's my frustration. I don't see why we only do this if it benefits the city. We don't do it if it hurts us in any way, shape, or form. And the fact that we might not be able to build a parking lot if we don't get our $9,000 is not there at all.
yeah, I mean, that's a fair statement that, you know, and harming the city doesn't necessarily mean it's creates catastrophic results. It just means might deny an opportunity that we might otherwise have if we held on to it.
So, Mayor, I agree with what Jason's saying on that wise. Initially, when we went into this previously, the swap was actually a good benefit. It did give us more parking in the back where there is more parking and the ability to do that. So, so I don't disagree at all with what you're saying on that. I think though that we need to get in place the ability to do that if that's a law that we need to comply to.
Regardless of the outcome of this vote. Yes,
Correct.
okay, great. So with that in mind, there is a motion to table. And let's take a vote on that now. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, that is a unanimous vote. So we'll table this item and get started with the process that is required by state law. And then, you know, we may be seeing you again. All right, thank you. Sorry that delays the process for you, but we've got to go through it. All right. So bearing in mind that we've got 17 minutes left in this meeting officially, unless we extend it, we have another item added to the action list because of the fireworks ordinance. Is there any reason why we need to address the retaining walls tonight?
No.
Anything pressing?
Austin, what was the retaining wall change? I'm trying to.
Yeah, so the retaining wall ordinance, what it is if you'll recall the shed ordinance.
Yeah.
We basically, if anything is going to be in a public utility easement, it requires that the owners of the public utility easement grant permission to have that structure built there. And so staff got looking at the ordinance. We thought if a shed needs to get permission from the utility companies in the city to be built in an easement, a retaining wall probably should do the same thing. So this ordinance copies and pastes the same language that was used for sheds and puts it in for retaining walls.
Okay, so we've got two options. We can either table this until another meeting and that would require a motion, or we can make a quick motion on what we have here, if you guys feel like we can address it very quickly and move on to the other two items.
Yeah. I make a motion that we table it.
Okay, there's a motion to table. Do we have a second to that
I'll
motion?
second.
Seconded by Lon Lot. All in favor?
Aye.
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 You seemed a little reluctant. I would just overstate the obvious.
I thought we could pass it almost as fast, so.
Okay, the motion passed unanimously. I think I heard a yes vote from you. Jessica, is that right?
See, Jason had a few
Even
comments.
if we
Okay,
passed it,
thank
it would take 3 minutes. Keep going.
All right, next item, and I've lost my power to my iPad, so I can't see the agenda anymore.
So next one is either Lambert Park
Thank you.
structure or the
Oh, yeah.
fireworks.
So let's hit the Lambert Park structure and should be able to cover that quickly. Jason, do you want to?
If I may apologize, I feel like trying to do this faster, but Shane brought it in and he brought in two different options for us, a larger option, a smaller option. There's two purposes here. One is to the safety of our community through the firing range up there, the fires and whatnot. And so that was kind of pushing this through. But as I went up there with Shane and we walked the site and we saw where it would lay out, I then asked, okay, where's the map going to be? And the map's going to sit back behind it 15 feet or whatever the offset is from the property line off the building. And it's not going to be on the building. I thought to myself, I thought this building was a little different, to be honest with you. And I kind of feel like I went too fast without understanding the true purpose of the building, not just for the firing range related things, but how does this fit in the general plan of Lambert Park for our citizens? How are the citizens going to use this particular structure? How can we tell them why it's there? And the last thing I want is to have a big roof with a big flat work that's completely empty inside. And you brought up a picnic table, which I think is great, but we never really went further than that. And so I was hoping that we could just step back and say, we need to move fast because there's a time here, but I don't want to do something that afterwards we scratch our heads and say, are the citizens really going to understand why we did that? So that's my only thing there.
Okay, thank you. Comments, thoughts, questions?
No, it's great to go on site, so I'm glad that, someone went up there and took an on-site look. So yeah, I think that's important. But we could put it, I mean, I don't know what the vision is. There was a bench. I don't know if that was planned to go in there or to the side, or the bike repair, is that outside, inside, and the map itself. And, I think Carla's said, right, or whoever it was, that they don't anticipate it getting a lot of use because it's up there. Might be nice though, if you climb up there and then you relax a bit.
Yeah, I think as far as the bike repair station goes, I think we agreed that it won't get utilized as much up there as it would down lower. That's probably not the best location for that piece of equipment. But in my mind, I was envisioning a bench or a picnic table so that people could hike to that point, enjoy some shade, watch the sunset, whatever they want to do. But it would be something that would accommodate a group of people, a small group of people. The other thing, and Jason mentioned this, the firing range up there that is extremely out of place. We are basically putting our stake in the ground, saying this is an occupied building structure, or at least occasionally occupied. It goes right next to a trail that is also occupied frequently, daily, by a number of our residents. And so we can make a case for shutting down shooting in that area. In my opinion, and I think Jason brings up some great points. My opinion was that the bigger the structure, the better, the more of a statement it makes that this is a structure and not just a shack. But that may not be the case. What were our two options in the size? We chose the larger of the two.
Yeah.
18 by 20.
The two, I just said, what stock plans do you have? What could be built into it? You had a 12 by 12 and you had an 18 by 20.
Okay.
And those were the two we presented, and council chose the 18 by 20. This is where it stands today. Sometimes maybe it doesn't pay to have connections because I called Wednesday morning, the guy jumped on it. The building is built, sitting there in his yard on the ground waiting. They wanted to install it yesterday.
Okay.
And I talked to Will, as a side note, Will mentioned that he actually immediately thought of a place in Lambert that he would rather put it. And so I think there's an option for us. If we said, okay, we want to do a smaller one, we still could. We'd have to pull your strings again to get it in here as soon as possible. But we wouldn't be throwing this away. They would have use of it.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying we're not stuck. But if the consensus is to move forward, then I'd just like to say what's in it, what's our messaging and how that fits into the master plan? How do we have signage on it? How do we have?
Or just a thought, I don't know if it cuts. I sent the picture of the sign structure, has a roof on it and everything. We got a fifth one that we could use up there. That was the plan. If we don't use it there, we can use it somewhere else, like Three Falls or somewhere. That could be put in that space because we've graded the pad. We built a little rock retaining wall. We graded a pad. We had to do a little bit of work on the trail. I don't know, have you been up there since?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you experience I had up there Thursday, okay? So we went to the Ace lunch. On my way back, I get texted a picture. The guys went up to get the backhoe. Because we just kind of put things on hold for a minute. They texted me a picture, said, hey, you got somebody up here shooting right now. So they were actually shooting from the pad we built across the trail. So I go, right.
Nice wrist. That's
So I go up there and I said, hey, do you guys realize that what you're doing here is illegal? He said, it was like a guy and his wife or girlfriend or something, like I'd say mid-20s. He's, no, we're on the forest. And I said, no, you're actually, and I was polite and he was polite. I said, you're actually on city property. And he says, no, there was a fence here, there's some posts, and this was the forest boundary. That's what I was told. I said, no, there was posts, there was a kind of a fence there, but that's not the city boundary. I said, see that little marker right there that says boundary marker? The forest, that's the forest. And the other one is down here in this group of brush. And he says, so the line's over there. I said, yeah. And he says, so all I have to do is move from here. He said, he actually said this. He says, I thought you guys did this to make it easier and safer to shoot from.
Backfire.
And he said, do I just have to go across the line? I said, well, right now, technically, yes, but this is what our city is looking at, putting a structure up here. You wouldn't be able to shoot within 150 yards of it. He says, well, so I just have to go 150 yards. He kind of pointed to the southeast. And, oh, you know.
I mean, the answer is yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Yeah. And I asked the guy, I said, because when I went up there, there was only one vehicle down in the parking lot by the restroom. And I said, so is that your truck down in the parking lot down here? And he says, no, I parked over here to the north. And he walked up the new trail to get to where he wanted to shoot.
Parked in Box Elder South.
Because he said it's actually shorter for
Yeah.
him to do that. I mean, he had shotgun, he had a rifle, pistol, he packed in clay pigeons.
But
and
it's
it packed
illegal to
in-
do though, right? Because they're crossing private property there in Lambert Estates.
There's actually a public easement
Yeah, there's a trail.
in the kind of corner, in actually both corners, the southeast and the southwest corners, there's a public access recorded on the plat. So we'd gathered up all the old stuff that had been shot up, you know, the bigger stuff
Right.
that we talked about. And he had a paper target up there, and I'm like, is that your target? He said, yeah, but we pack it out. And I said, are those your shell casings over there? Yeah, we haven't cleaned them up yet because we're not finished. And anyway, like I said, they were polite, but
Well, that's
they knew what they could do.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is they're probably in the majority, the people that clean up after themselves and they're using the area appropriately and legally. It's the people that have completely pigged it out that caused the problems.
And that's, I envision, I'm like, okay, if we had a picnic table here, they would have, so the little retaining wall kind of on the east side that we had to put in to kind of make the trail work, they had a tripod right there for this gun and we're shooting across the trail right there.
Yeah, signage is gonna be important. Yep.
And so that's what I'm like, man, if we had a picnic table here, I can just see him played out across the
Just love
picnic
it.
table.
They'd probably be reloading on the picnic.
Probably.
Table.
So.
All right.
I wonder if we could put up a taller fence there, you know, just in that little section to make it less convenient.
Yeah.
But you know, whatever direction the council has,
just a quick item. I'm gonna step aside from this issue for just a moment. We're gonna need a motion to extend the meeting if you guys would like to do that. Otherwise, it's gonna wrap up in about 6 minutes. So I would. And if
Clock's
we-
a little late.
Is it slow? Oh, yeah, we've got 5 minutes left. Just enough time to make a motion.
So the option here is, do we just keep moving forward with what we have? Again, like I said, when I first brought it up, I was picturing the back of it being the map a chair in front of it, they could sit on, and a covering on top that, you know, she can have, because you couldn't have the shooting range. I mean, it's different. They can shoot up whatever they want. If you're gonna get people or vandalize. We could go that route, or if we're gonna stay with the bigger one, what is the plan for internally in it? And to your point, I think we need to sign it up really hard. But we don't want to make a shooting range area for people to do there too, you know, so I don't know.
Well, I mean.
I'm looking for a solution.
I guess I'm looking at it thinking that if we did have, let's say we did move forward with the larger structure, and I'm not saying that's what we should do, but if we did, and we put a picnic table in there, we got 20 by 18, right?
So the outside of the eaves, it's 18 by 20. So the posts on the narrow end, which was going to be south and north, are 13'6" apart. And then you've got the overhang. And then going the other direction, the posts are 16 feet on center.
So you got room for at least a couple of tables in there if you wanted to, maybe some benches back to back, things like that. I mean, it's an observation, but I don't know, when we talked about it before, I thought it was kind of leaning toward an observation point and a place to grab some shade and read a sign that tells you where you are.
Well, I guess my question, would a smaller structure seem like a structure, or is it simply a shack, a shade? You know, and that's sort of, if that's, you know, a large part of the decision, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, we could.
The challenge is, we've talked about this for years now. There's not a clear definition on what a structure is, right? Our attorneys have looked at it. We've had Forest Service look at it. We've looked at it. That's why I favor a larger structure, because it just fortifies the argument. It's a structure, you know, and if to, you know, and Jason, I can understand where you are with it, because if it doesn't have a functional purpose, then why is it there?
Picnic benches seem weird, like in a way, having two picnic benches up there. It could be, and it's developed recreational property, you know, there's a lot of things to it, but it just seems.
Maybe it's an exercise station where you have a pull-up bar, and you have a few other things.
Honestly, that's not a bad idea.
You run a trail, you do some pull-ups, you have maybe a couple of other apparatus that creates more of an activity center. That would hold people there longer, perhaps.
But I would hope it'd be a peaceful place, you know, a place.
Yeah, but you can do a few squats and a few pull-ups peacefully, can't you?
It's a good idea.
I know you probably.
Better attitude. Focus on positive.
Jason, I'm sure you grow and grown a lot when you do push-ups, but you know, not everybody is. I'm kidding. He's in a lot better shape than I am.
Just a quick comment from somebody who does some shooting from time to time. If you're gonna provide a pavilion for people to rest their firearms on and to rest when they do their hike to get in there, I think you're just inviting people to come up there and shoot. I mean, you talk about putting a mic station at the bottom, you might as well put a gun cleaning station at the top. So no, to me, it just invites people to come up there more. It's just a thought that I have. Whenever you go shooting, you have nice picnic tables to rest on. You've got a bench to do your cleaning on, a place to put their equipment while they're shooting. They can keep it there in the shade. It's just a thought that comes to my mind. It's things that shooters like, to be honest with you. I understand what you're trying to do with a larger structure, but that's just whatever you like. There's still an enforcement piece to this that we will certainly be participating in, but just.
What if it was designated as an overlook? If it was designated as an overlook, it's probably our highest furthest east location in Alpine. That satisfies what's the use. And then we make sure that says property of Alpine City, so that there's not a confusion if we're on, federal property or city property. And then you don't have a place for people to get really comfortable and lay out all of their ammunition and things like that.
And if we cited some, federal ordinance that said no shooting within 150 yards, right, then that might help.
That definitely steps.
Mayor, may I make a motion?
Sure.
I make a motion that we extend this meeting to 9:15, but no later than 9:15.
Thank you, Lon. Do we have a second to that motion? Oh, you
Yeah,
did.
I'll
Sorry,
second,
Greg.
yeah.
So motion by Lon, second by Greg. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
I don't really think it being 12 by 12 or 18 by 20 is gonna have a difference in the end result. I think defining it is what's important.
And and I agree totally with that. The definition of what we're trying to do is create recreation, create something that stops people from thinking. And so my suggestion was that we would move that structure down by our bathroom. We put the sign structure there and we create some other little diversions. If you've ridden Trailside in Park City, there's some wood things that you ride on, teeter totters, so on. We create that up there. So we draw more people there, but not with making it easier. In fact, we make it more, if you're a shooter, you don't want to be there because all of a sudden we got people riding back and forth. They're doing teeter totters. They're standing around doing that. And we've got a nice sign pavilion there. Anyhow, that's what we're thinking as a trail company. We'd love to see you do that. And another thing we'd like to see is work with a developer on Lambert Estates and see if we can get a fence when he comes into Lambert. He wanted one down below. And so I tried to reach him. I haven't been able to reach him, but I will keep going. I would like him to fence that corner because his public trail comes to there and stays inside. It doesn't need to come into ours. He didn't want us to bring the trail to him. So I'm gonna ask him not to bring the trail to us in that corner. But that's what we'd like to see. Maybe those kind of structures, you know, some little ramps and things like that would be fun.
So not a building? I mean, not
Well,
like
no,
a
we still do the sign, the kiosk. Have you seen the kiosk?
Okay, the kiosk.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, put the kiosk there, put this here. We'll go 3 or 4 this way, 3 or 4 that way. And all of a sudden we brought people and we brought them not to make it convenient because they will sit in that thing. I looked at that. That's quite a nice building. But it would be awesome down by the bathroom and in that area. And that'd be used there. It'd be a great use. And we haven't, it would look like we thought about it.
The bathroom at the Bowery?
Yeah.
Do you mean at the Bowery or?
No, down by our parking, down below, right?
The new south parking lot?
That'd be awesome there. Okay. I told you I'd take a minute.
Thanks, Will.
So thought down, if we did put it down there, I think you could probably get away without having a concrete floor. Just with the setting it's in, just have the same kind of gravel we have in the parking lot. And be cheaper.
Yeah, I guess I feel like we're going a little bit backwards because we had this plan and now we're kind of unraveling the plan. But
Well, the plan's still there. It's just again, more intentional. I think we have the kiosk up there. We have the map. As the Trails Committee has pointed out, if you can add a couple of features or structures that bring more bikers, more hikers up there, that's going to deter. I mean, I don't know if the couple that you saw there, Shane, on Thursday would have been super comfortable if there were some bikers up there kind of practicing, you know, a table or whatever, you know, that might look like. It might deter, it would definitely deter. And then you're calling out that this is an overlook or this is what this area is. But, you know, we're kind of learning as we go. Okay, if we put this big, nice, comfy, shady building up there, is that going to work the direction we're headed, or is that going to work against us?
Yeah.
So I think it's okay to get more information and make course corrections along the way.
Maybe we should do some designs of the actual pavilions, like what would fit in each size, right? Like, what does this look like from an overhead? How many tables or benches, or what's that layout? And based on 2 sizes, maybe, I don't know, or if we're just going to one size.
We just have to remember that we're committed on the one.
Yeah.
Wherever it goes.
Yes,
we're
it's done.
committed. Yeah.
So my proposal, Mayor, I know you, but I really would like to take this one and put it down there by the parking lot and go through the process of creating a kiosk. One that is smaller, but has the roof, has the backing, so you don't shoot through it, with the map, with a nice seat, and we use it to basically say it's a peaceful area to go on a hike and watch the sunset. You know, there's different reasons for it. I like the idea of what Will was talking about up there too. I think we'd be better served as a city if we took a step back.
Okay, and Will, you suggested putting some ramps and things up there. Is that something you feel like you could do and keep it blended into the hillside so that it's not?
I'm not gonna do the big wall. Have you seen the wall in Trailside? It's 18 tall. We're not, these would be on the ground. So you do your ramp, you know, the T-tars, you ride
Yeah.
over and ride down, those kind of things that would be fun to do. And we would draw people up there because that's where it is.
Yeah.
Kids.
It would
Okay.
be, we're gonna have fun. I went to Trailside last week just to relook. I don't get very excited, do I? Sorry. It would be fun to do. I was telling Mr. Shane, gonna get the same way. It would look like we did this intentionally and we're gonna do it. And then we signed the heck out of it.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is a recreational area. You cannot shoot within X amount of, was it 150 yards?
150 yards.
150 yards along there, and we get them fence over there. We've done our thing, and then that trail just gets used more.
Okay, here's the question though. How quick can we get that up?
We can start.
Can we? We have the resources? Do you have the resources you need?
I'm gonna call the guy who did trail side.
Okay,
Yeah, they gave me his name, said, call him, see if we can build for you. Because we want it done right. We don't want crappy ones. We defeated our purpose here. But I really like the thing, the pavilion down below. Guys, that
It would get
awesome.
used.
And yeah, that's great.
okay.
Easier for the guys. There's pavilions create garbage.
Yeah.
If it was down there, it would be easier for the
to
parks
maintain
guys. to
Yeah.
clean
Well,
up.
in that parking lot, I sent you guys all pictures of it earlier this week. It was overflowing. People waiting for a space. And I was mad because I found a space, then I realized I forgot my phone and had to go back home.
We may need to expand that parking there.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. It's taken, there's hardly any more up at the Bowery or up at Rodeo. Because that starts you at the bottom and you ride.
Yeah, although I would rather, I think, and this is a whole different conversation, it'd be nice to start trying to push people to those other lots. They may not be aware of them, like especially at the end of
Well,
Willow,
we get our signs up there. It'll
Yeah.
help. Trailhead here, trailhead there.
Yeah.
So that'll help all that.
rather than grow that one. Okay, so do we need a motion or do we need you just need direction? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, let's get moving here. We got a few minutes.
So maybe we can give direction. Can we do this? Hey, we're gonna move the big one with the help of the planning, of the Trails Committee to determine where it should go down in the parking lot. We will then work with the Trails Committee and the city to develop a kiosk and the plan for up in there. And that's
Sounds
the
good.
direction we give the city.
All right, got what you need, Shane?
No, but that's just what I'm saying. That's what you guys.
So we'll pick a spot somewhere. I'm thinking probably northwest of the restroom maybe, or somewhere right in there. There is a sewer main that comes through there, so we'll have to just be off of it, but it
Yeah.
can fit in there.
Or get permission from the city to go on these.
And, okay, we gotta move on.
And then you'll bring it back for a motion, right? Because we had a motion on the other one, right? That was kind
Well,
of specific, so we'd need to.
That's my
Adjust it,
question,
okay.
I guess. Are we just to go do it?
I think
Or
we can
do
just
you want
do
to
it.
see kind of a site plan?
I say we trust our
Yeah,
city
I
and
think we can do
and
that.
Trails Committee to put it. in
The
there.
motion prior was primarily to spend the money and to spend the resources.
That is true. I'm not sure if it was exactly where, maybe it was as proposed, but it was the building expense, right?
Yeah, and then the upper side, staff would work with Trail Committee to come up with kind of a plan, and that would be brought
What's
back.
that? We said that part back, but we'll start showing what these people are gonna put in there. We'll just send those out.
Clock is ticking. We've got 6 minutes.
That's what we're doing.
Chief, would you like to come up and help maybe address the fire situation?
I was next. I would have kept talking.
You can't leave.
Oh, yes, I can. I parked in the red zone.
Evening.
Good evening.
So, talking fireworks.
Yeah.
I talked to Bonnie today. She has a map of the drought situation in this state. Let me first give you, we're using the map that we used last year. And basically the white part in here is the part that's open with all the trails and city parks and everything. We've really scrunched Alpine down. There's not a lot of room in Alpine, and what I gather, it's old Alpine, meaning big trees, more established. With the dryness this year, my recommendation would be to cancel fireworks. I would ban them in Alpine City. I talked to
Thank
Mayor
you.
Mann today. Mayor Mann, with the way Highlands map works, and I'm not speaking for Highland City, I'm not speaking for their council or anything else, but we just had a conversation and he seemed very in favor of banning fireworks from SR 92 north. It makes it really easy for us to watch the officers. They don't have to try to figure out what street they're on if they were in the legal spot. Nobody's gonna go, hopefully nobody's gonna go out in SR 92 and light fireworks. I do understand the need and I wish, I mean, and maybe this is something we can look at, a place to do fireworks. I know that you guys.
We had that.
Definitely, I'm not.
You want another ambulance.
It was fun to
after it's
watch,
over.
I can tell you that.
Right.
For me, it
What
was.
what I'm meaning is, somewhere in this county, it's not gonna, I don't think it should be an Alpine. Just somewhere, I mean, whether it's the Costco parking lot or just somewhere in this county where we say, here's a grip load of asphalt. We should come here.
How about on Utah Lake?
Sure,
You can launch them from
something
your
like
boat.
that. I think you're gonna see this across the state, the ban. So if you go to utahfireinfo.com,
Yeah.
it kind of shows where like campfires and open burning and all these places, it's an active map. And all of the southern part of Utah, all the west side and most of the east side, outside of Salt Lake or Weber, Salt Lake and Utah counties, everywhere is banned open fires.
Yeah, and I concur. Brian and I had a conversation earlier today. It's my hope that you would have that opinion because I don't think there's any room for error. This year is going to be explosive when it comes to fires. We had a bad year last year, a terrible year. This is going to be worse.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel like there's any room, any margin for error, and that if we allow it in one part of town, it becomes more difficult to patrol because, if it's banned completely, one firework goes up, that's a violation of the law. You can
Right.
zero in on that. Whereas if we're trying to establish borders, you can be just inside the border or just outside the border, and from a distance, you can't tell. So
Right.
enforcement becomes a nightmare. Mayor Frost also declared, no, he's already done it for American Fort. I think it would be the responsible thing for us to do to make that happen. So the question I have, thank you, and do you know is it the fire marshal, fire chief? As I recall, that's where the state legislature left it, is the council could no longer vote on it. It had to be enacted by the fire chief.
There's actually two parts to it. I looked along. Hiram
Okay,
has a
Hiram,
copy of it here.
Can you please address that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and just so I'm clear, Mayor, you want me to address the legality of banning?
Who makes the decision? I mean, it's a
Oh.
pretty straightforward question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do
The
we
city
vote on
council
it?
does. It first comes
Okay.
from the fire code official.
Okay,
In
good.
this case, as long as he makes a determination that there's these existing or historical hazardous environmental concerns or conditions.
Okay.
As long as he makes that, the legislature can then go forward. Now, there are certain conditions within the statute that you have to meet to circle off a hazardous area, like mountainous, bush covered, forest covered, wildland, urban interfaces, 200 feet within waterways, trails, canyons. So if we can say that Alpine fits within all of those categories, which it likely does, then yeah, you can fully ban it. The legislature, the city council has the authority to do it.
Okay, thank you. We are up against it, guys, or we'll be in violation of our own code. So can we take it that is your recommendation then? It sounded like it was.
Fire chief,
Listen, I'm deferring to the expert on fire.
Yeah.
that would be my recommendation, and I would strongly consider the open fire, like the fire pits and recreational burns as well. I mean, it's only May and the whole state is blacked out. I mean, the map we were looking at today, it is extreme.
So I would ask
So-
for a motion to include fireworks of all kinds and also open fires, open flames.
I'll make a motion.
Please.
I'll make a motion based on the recommendation from our interim deputy chief, Brian Patton, that we outlaw fireworks in 2021. Yes, I was just trying to think, along with open campfires within city limits.
Okay, and beginning on what date?
Beginning June 1st. Just pick the date out of the air.
We have Labor Day weekend, Memorial Day weekend coming up.
When would be the best time to start that? I mean,
Can we-
immediately? Beginning
I think-
immediately.
I think immediately.
Okay.
Okay, Bonnie, did you get that motion? And
Including, yep.
okay, do we have a second to that motion? Anybody willing to second the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Jason Thielen, seconded by Lon Lot. All in favor?
Aye.
Oops, Lon, did you have something to say? Sorry, I didn't wanna, we're past our time.
Yeah, just the recreational fire thing. How's that gonna work?
As far as
Yeah.
policing it.
Mhm.
Smoke.
I mean, yeah, I mean, definitely has the potential.
Policing it will be on a reported basis. We're talking about people lighting fires in their backyards and roasting marshmallows. So that will be something that we'll respond to when it's reported or observed.
But easier in our parks or open space where.
Right, yeah, oh yeah,
pops
that's
up.
much easier to enforce, rather than on private property. So.
Okay. All right, so we'll go back to the vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, council. I have to adjourn the meeting if you want us to know something.
Main
Thank you.
thing, I almost have the budget, and I've met with everybody on the budget. I almost have the information that everyone asked for, so I'll have it out to you very soon.
Terrific. Is there anything that urgent that needs to be brought up before the council? Motion to. Oh, yeah. It's 7:30. Well, that one comes up quick, doesn't it?
Especially this year, it's been kind of
Yeah.
an erratic schedule.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
I'll be on that meeting by phone. It's my daughter's graduation in the morning.
Oh, yeah,
10
that's right.
o'clock, so.
Okay. Thanks for making that motion. So.
So I hope we're.
No more.
I know the rules for cities and the rules for counties are different. So I'm hoping we're gonna- David Church goes close.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys can have to. That's gonna be the biggest deterrent. Right, that's gonna be the biggest deterrent. We can talk all about this. So you can have that. It's really the most logical thing.
And I think this is.
Well, first he said that all of it is hazardous. That's the first thing. Next is. So, yeah, so we have an existing hazardous environment condition that's existing. So you can tell us what the
We're still.
and if we can also meet mountainous, bush covered, forest covered, dry.
So that's how our maps was created, because we have a corridor down each.
Yeah, for sure. But I kind of anticipated that too. Brian, thank you. We'll see you in the morning.
Definitely how this village drafted definitely seems.
It's, yeah, so.
Disfavorable.
Hopefully.
You guys really need to. Oh, on that Viper board.
It says a limited area.
You guys really need to go up there and take a look at that.
Why don't I have my map? Anyway, so we, yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
So we took a distance off of the channel and that's, that was to fit that criteria. But this region,
Right around the corner, you have the open space.
when the fire code official determines that the existing.
What's the date? 29?
So, yeah. Sorry.